All right, good. Okay, welcome everyone. This is our Building Code Technical Advisory Group for State Building Code Council on December 12th, 2024. Let's jump in and take roll, please.
All right, Chair Primary Todd Bayrether.
Here.
Chair Alternate Roger Herringa.
He's driving, he'll join.
Okay, let me pull up our participants, that way I can monitor the room as well. All right, Architect Primary Joe Mayo.
Here.
Thank you. For the alternate, Chair Fortaleza, she let me know she'd be logging in about 1:30 on this one today. Building Official Primary Tim Woodard.
Here.
Thank you. Alternate Steve Belzak.
I'm here. I just want to let you know, Dustin, I have actually a dental appointment at 5, so I'll be leaving it like at 4:30 today.
Okay. 30. All right, it's Fire Services Primary Lance Dahl. Lance, I see you on there, but I'm not hearing you. We'll come back and recall for Lance. Cities and Counties Primary, Hoyt Jeter.
Yes, I'm here. And I just have to go to the restroom real quick. I'll be right back because I just got out of another meeting. So
Gotcha.
Can you hear me now, Dustin?
Yeah, is that Lance?
Yep, buttonology, I guess.
Gotcha. I hear you now.
Okay.
Affordable Housing Representative Primary Todd Sullivan. Not seeing them online today. General Contractor Developer Primary Bill Mybush. Not seeing them online here today. Manufacturer Supplier Primary Brian Horseman. Not seeing them. Structural Engineer Primary Joshua Mergens.
Present.
Thank you. For the alternate, Trent Tenney. Not seeing them here today. Person with disability or accessibility expert primary Michael Shaw. Not seeing them online. For building owner property manager primary Brett Conway.
Here.
Thank you. For general public subject matter expert primary Michael Barth.
I'm here.
Thank you. For the alternate Leah Summer. Not seeing them online. State Enforcement Agency primary Paul Clark.
Here.
Thank you. And Fire Protection Engineer primary Andy Leonto. Not seeing him here. Josh, you have your hands up.
I was just going to say, I forgot to mention, I will have to leave around 4 today. I could probably go a little bit longer and still make what my other appointment, but just a heads up for 4, I'm probably leaving around.
Gotcha.
And I'm back, just to let you know.
Thank you, Hoyt. So with that, we've got 9 seats represented here today. Our quorum equals 8. So at 4, when you're out of here, Josh, make sure to let us know. And then at 4:30, when Steve, Tim's here, so we're okay if you head out at 4:30. And then just as always, if you're going to be heading out at all, raise your hand and let us know just so we can keep track of quorum. And then I'll keep an eye on the guest list as well as we perform the meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Dustin. Thank you, everyone. Let's continue with anyone from the public that would like to be recognized. Kathleen?
Hi, thank you very much. Kathleen Petrie, King County. I'll be tag teaming again today with Ross. And one thing I just wanted to share is that we submitted the revisions to our EV proposal for IEBC number 123 on 12/8, and it was not posted in the agenda, only the original was. So perhaps we can chat about that when the time comes. Thank you.
At 123.
On 14 there.
Yeah.
And so we have a
Okay, thank you.
version of that.
Yes, yeah, it was sent on Sunday. I just resent it. We didn't realize it until right before the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. We'll look at
Yeah,
that.
thank you very much.
Anyone else? Okay. We'll go to review and approve the agenda. Let's start with a motion to approve and then we'll discuss it.
Lance, I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you.
This is Tim. I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Okay, so we have at least, well, maybe I'll start out, but our goal, should you choose to accept the challenge, is to get through this today. And concluding, if everything goes well, is to take action on item 18, which is to move the whole package forward. So items 4 through 17 are kind of, consider them a final, final action on the remaining proposals. These have all been read in and discussed once, to my knowledge. Item 6, Dustin, is what Ken was referring to, or Vision 4
Yes, sir.
is added. That was just not linked, right? Is that correct, Dustin?
It was an oversight on my part. We had different versions going through at the IFC and IBC at different times, and just a slight oversight, and I noticed it right before the meeting.
We'll be very transparent when we get to that one. And then we just heard item 14. So do we want to put a placeholder there, Dustin, and if you can find that?
Well, I
Revision
have
2?
it from Kathleen in the inbox here, so I can be ready to share that when we get there. But we have a revision 2. I'll get it in here.
Okay, so those are the 2 known amendments. Are there any other proposed changes to the agenda today? Okay, there's a motion on, and I'm sorry, we just added that amendment after the motion. Do you accept that amendment?
Yeah.
Lance, and okay. It was Tim, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to adopt this agenda as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any, thank you.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the agenda as amended is adopted. Item 3 is public comment for anything not on the agenda. Would anyone from the public like to address the tag? Go ahead, Julius.
Hi, this is Julius Carrion from Wabuti CD. We had a proposal that was already approved by the TAG last week, the IEBC proposal for 503. It's a GP 049, and we're intending to submit it on the national level, and we noticed some inconsistency, so I did submit a minor revision to Dustin earlier today. I don't know if it can be added to the agenda for re-review, or it doesn't need to be voted again by the TAG. So, but yeah, we did submit a minor revision to the GP
It's
049.
049. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
My kind of thought on that one was when we get to the whole package, let's just talk about that when it was approved, and you've just got some stuff that's kind of clarifying. It's not substantive modifications. Is that correct, Julius?
Yes. Well.
Okay.
Yep.
And Dustin, you and I talked about the one that happens to have my name on as a proponent. I added some of the requested information and also proposed some minor edits that don't change intent, but is that the right time then in that package we'll flag any of those and have those kind of edits?
Correct.
Make sure everyone agrees there's no substantial change, no other actions taken, and we'll roll it into the whole final decision.
Correct. And on that one for you, Todd, specific, we made a motion to approve it. And then the intent was to bring some stuff back to the chapter 35 on that one. And the motion on that one, as I have it recorded, is that we review the addition of the chapter 35 stuff at the review of the whole package.
Are there any others that are in that category?
I've got one more on there. There was one that staff was asked to revise just to correct some formatting issues. And off the top of my head, I have to get in here and look at the spreadsheet
Okay.
here.
I think we can probably wait till we get there, but I just everyone be ready, and then that's at the will of the tag of what you want to do on any of those edits in that final package. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead. Thank you, Julius. All right, with that, if there's no other public comment, let's move into our, any other questions before we jump into what we're doing today? Okay, if not, we'll jump into,
Hello, can you hear me?
yes, go ahead, Patrick.
Oh, Patrick's
Yes,
calling in, doesn't have a raised hand feature, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. This is Patrick Hanks from Building Industry Association of Washington. I'm participating via mobile device while traveling, so so having some technical difficulties, but I am here.
Okay. We'll make sure we're do our best to accommodate everything. Thank you, Patrick. Okay, agenda item 4 then would be petition 092 revision 1.
Okay, I'm gonna pop that open.
This is Josh Mergens as the proponent. Whenever we're ready, I can start diving into some of the things on this.
We are ready,
Everybody's
Josh.
ready.
All right, so this already went through a lot of conversation while I wasn't here, and it ended up being tabled for quorum, and I listened to that conversation, and there are some valid points that got brought up with some concerns about this, so I dug a little further in, and I want to see how the tag wants to press forward. I'll try to keep it brief, but essentially the original provision that was in the WAC. Well, I can even back up a little further. I know some folks have some questions of why we included the 401.2 on this. And Justin, are you able to share your screen with the proposal?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I have it all pulled up and I feel like I'm ready to go, and then I forget to update the share. So one moment.
No worries.
There it is.
So there were some questions before why we had 401.2 on here. I included it because both these provisions are in one WAC. So there is no changes to that top portion. It's just that they were both in the same WAC, so I include them in the proposal. If that's not appropriate, it can always be changed, but that answers one question. The bigger question, though, is what was the intent of 401.4 from the original WAC, and have we really addressed anything? So the main concern was we saw this effectively demolished by damage, and the concern was, hey, what does that mean? What is effectively demolished? How do you enforce language like that? So I tried to clean it up the best I can. Some folks had some questions about what the intent was, and overall, the more I'm looking at it, effectively what we've done is nullified this WAC and bringing it to just what the IEBC would have you do anyways. So that's starting to make me say, okay, well, hold on, that's just undoing the WAC. That doesn't make sense. So what was the WAC trying to accomplish? And I gotta be honest, I'm not fully figuring it out. What I think was intended is this was for the scenario that some of us are familiar with, where people will demolish everything but one wall and then replace a building and say, hey, that's a remodel. There's a whole world of people doing that to get out of various requirements. And I think what they were trying to get at was, hey, if you're doing that, the whole thing needs to meet new code, including its foundation, with an exception that the foundation could remain and be reused where approved by the code official. So what's odd to me is it says when a building is effectively demolished and you're replacing it, it has to meet new requirements. That's always true. If you demolish a building and replace it, you always have to meet new requirements. It was never even a conversation of not meeting new requirements if you demolish a building. Now, I think they were trying to get at this, hey, you've effectively demolished it. But again, if you're greater than 50% work area in the IEBC, you have to bring it to current code. There are some exceptions for alterations with seismic. I don't know if there's a code path to say this, but I don't believe anyone is interpreting it as you get to use 75% seismic if you keep one wall up. Plans examiners on here, I would love to hear from you on that. If you're seeing people pushing that forward, that's never been my understanding of it. So then it goes on to say, hey, the foundation too has to meet new code. And you went, okay, now that makes some sense. We're saying, hey, your foundation, it can't just be whatever was existing. It doesn't matter if we're under our 5% gravity rule, because there's a rule in the IEBC, if you don't increase by more than 5%, you don't have to do anything, and they want to make sure the foundation's okay. That's great. But then it makes an exception saying the foundation doesn't have to be new if approved by the building official, which to me is kind of how things are already running. So I'm kind of opening up to the group to see if anyone has a better idea of what this provision is trying to accomplish, and further, if it's actually changing any process that's already outlined in the IEBC. So I'm struggling a little bit with this one now to say, should we be modifying it? Should we be considering proposing to remove it or leave it as is and maybe try to fix the effectively? I guess the intent of everything is not extremely clear here. So I'll stop talking, open up to anyone who, especially plans examiners who may have some better information on how this might have helped them in the past.
Well, I'll
Hey,
go
Josh.
first on this. Oh,
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry. Yeah, I'll go first here from the city of Tacoma. What has been hard by this is some of this stuff in the International Existing Building Code. Is there are times when there's like here in Tacoma, we've had piles and so it's been like hugely expensive to do a whole new foundation system when the
Sure.
existing foundation has worked. And
Mhm.
this is where one of the cases, because we have some poor soils in here in Tacoma, this is one of the portions thereof where, you know, the building was damaged, and it was in a poor soil areas when you didn't have to bring the whole building up to, you know, all the way down to the foundation. You could use the existing foundation that was there because it worked before. So that was kind of where it's come down to, where we've used this before. So just thought to bring that up.
And that makes a ton of sense. And in fact, I originally was typing up a set of examples to why we need this language until I feel like I kind of proved myself out of that. But one of my examples was exactly what you mentioned. If maybe a site didn't require piles before, geotechnical rules have changed and now needs piles, and it gets water damage on the roof, you wouldn't want to say that, hey, you have to redo your foundation now because you demolished to do this repair, or maybe someone decides that demolishing a large portion of a roof is effectively demolished. Now you have to retrofit piles. Now that effectively means if your building had a little bit of water damage you were repairing, the whole thing's trashed. However, as I read the IEBC, it already covers all of those situations. It already has provisions for repair and replacement that's separate from alterations, and it already addresses it. Actually, it's kind of interesting. If you look at the section above here, it says work on non-damaged components that is necessary for the required repair of damaged components shall be considered part of the repair and shall not be subject to the requirements of alterations. That's even less restrictive than what I'm trying to put. So technically my language is contradictory in this proposal, because it says where you're effectively demolished to repair, then you have to meet alterations, which seems to make sense to me. But it appears the original intent was they don't have to do it. So I'm very confused at this point of what this original provision was trying to accomplish. I agree that the language is problematic and hard to enforce, and I would like to clear that up. But what I've proposed, I feel like essentially just nullifies this entire whack. Then you ask yourself, are we improving anything? Should we either A, remove this? Should we maybe try to define effectively demolished? And again, I can't help but notice, I don't know what this whack does that changes the IEBC. I just can't see how this changes our situation. And I'm hoping anyone else has some suggestions. I'm of the mind that we would either change our approach to try to define effectively, which I don't think is a good approach, propose removing a portion of this, or rescinding the proposal, knowing that this isn't the world's biggest issue and we've got a lot of bigger things on our plate. And I see Tim raising his hand. I'm interested to hear what Tim says.
Yeah, so again, thanks for reaching out and us talking through the same thing, because this is the problem I had when we were reviewing this to begin with. I couldn't figure out a scenario that this played into. This would seemingly override other provisions of the IEBC. We already have substantial structural damage provisions, which would include things that need to be demolished in that substantial structural damage. And within that definition, it gives us clear guidance. If your roof repair exceeds 30% of the roof that's damaged, then you have to bring the building up to code. If your seismic capacity exceeds X, then you do this. This seemingly opens up the floodgates, and you could always point back to this to say, oh no, I'm going to keep this the same, and or you could point back to this and say, oh no, you need to do the whole foundation. So in my opinion, we just need to repeal this whole whack and basically say that the IEBC it's progressed enough that it covers every scenario that we can come up with that would normally have been covered by this, possibly in the past when it wasn't well covered by the IEBC. So that would be what I think needs to happen. And yeah, I'll leave it there.
And Tim, after our conversation and doing some subsequent review myself, I was trying damned hard to prove why what you're saying doesn't work, and I couldn't do it. So I fully agree with you at this point that I don't think this is achieving anything. I think the language I have here is better than the effectively language, but it doesn't do anything necessarily regulatorily, or maybe it can be interpreted more liberally than the language in the IEBC and cause problems. I don't know if the process looks different if we're proposing repealing a WAC, or how we would even do this at this late stage. I know we're running low on this stuff. Personally, I don't think this is the world's biggest obstacle. I think we have a lot bigger things on our plate. I don't think it's the best language, but I don't think the industry would be that damaged if I pull my proposal and we just kind of let it go. So I'm kind of asking everyone here, are we too late in the game to entertain something as different as trying to repeal this WAC? We're running out of time as it is, so I'm curious what folks think.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with Tim on this. I think maybe just getting rid of it. It seems like somebody had an issue, like you mentioned before, with leaving a small portion of the structure intact in order to try to get away from having to make complete compliance. And so I think in response to that, this was proposed, the effectively demolished language. And I think that was kind of a reactionary thing. And everyone here seems to be in agreement so far that the IEBC does manage all these things, and it's been well vetted. I am in agreement with Tim's proposal on this.
So
Yeah, I want to say also I'm in agreement too. I'm fine getting rid of it too, because I think it's correct. I was just trying to say also why I think it was there, and it's just kind of been in there for a while. I think this has been in there for a little while in this WAC. So back in 2003.
And I'm thinking the IEBC has since grown and covered this, and we just never really noticed that it covered it. So I guess the question to Todd or Dustin. Oh well, let's let one more here. Sorry.
Is it sorry, Natalie?
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Welcome.
Yeah, Natalie Bold with us. I guess Webber TCD structural. This text for 1.4, I was just looking in the 2024 code proposals. That's when I think it was added in the 2024 code, right? So you're taking it from at the national level. So you're taking it from the national level and putting it in the state code. Is that what you're doing here?
So not exactly, but you brought up a good point that I want to circle back to, and thank you for helping refresh my memory on some of this. 401.2 has been modified in the 2024 IEBC, and the language was brought forward at one point to, I'm presuming, the 2018 code. The IEBC does not have a 401.4, that's purely just Washington, but this 401.2, which if you look at I'm so glad you said this. Thank you so much for bringing it up. I had this all figured out last week and we didn't get to talk about it. Okay. 401.2 used to be phrased differently in the 2018 IEBC. The 2024 IEBC has added this language that the repair shall not be subject, or components considered part of the repair shall not be subject to the requirements of alterations, which is different than I expected, but it looks like that was brought forward in what's currently in here.
Okay.
Again, I don't know that this WAC serves a purpose anymore. I don't know exactly where all it came from. It doesn't seem to change a situation at this point, but thank you so much for bringing it up. There was some aspect of this that had to have been brought forward because it had language from a future code verbatim.
Okay. Right, thanks.
And perhaps people thought that language from the IEBC was insufficient. That doesn't seem to be the opinion of this tag. So I guess the question is, should we decide to propose removing this WAC? Are we too late in the game? What does that look like? I don't think we've discussed removing any WACs yet.
So in this case, what you're saying is there is proposed amendment here to something that's existing. It doesn't sound like there is necessarily support or need for that. So the alternative is to simply deny the amendments, but you're saying go further by potentially striking all of 401.4, and what would the pathway be to do that? Is that correct?
Exactly, because it's, and even 401.2, because it's verbatim from the code. There is no amendment there if we get rid of 401.4. There used to be, but now that language is in the code.
Okay, so Dustin, so we're talking about something that obviously is a substantial change that we haven't noticed, and just because of our situation on our timing, what would you
Well,
propose?
we can't, so I guess first addressing whether or not we can strike the whack language. That is totally doable. To Todd's point, talking about our timing and where we're at in our process and what we want to do for public noticing on this. You know, if we're going to go back to the model code, I think we can make the modification here today and move the proposal forward. This wouldn't be the only proposal that was modified, not necessarily quite as big, but modified at the tag meeting and recommended for adoption or approval by the committees down the road. So I guess there's two paths forward. We can make the modification to reserve the language in WAC 480, 401, and strike all that and go back to model code language for these sections in the IEBC. The other option is we can make the modification and we could potentially hold off on agenda item number 18 and hold one more meeting next week prior to the BFRW committee meeting that we're going to have next week. If we were going to have another meeting next week, it would need to be on a Monday or Tuesday, just so that there's enough time to digest this. I'm really hoping that after this meeting, should we complete our agenda, make a recommendation on the whole package, to get it posted for the BFRW committee next week, here by tomorrow, so that there's a whole business week available for people to review this.
So it's interesting that your first option seems like the preferable, that essentially we're saying an amendment came in, or petition came in to consider this, but ultimately we're gonna take the tag back 6 months and say the model code is probably the preferable, and to strike the, or is that's not possible because it's striking an existing whack, right?
Well, one of the other things that I would love to get into is our existing amendments and significant changes report. Because I don't have it downloaded to my desktop right now, it'll bog down the system and I'll be waiting for a couple minutes. And as far as keeping this meeting rolling, going back and looking at that, I'm curious what we have in those reports for 401.2 there. That one, being that it's verbatim model code language, may have been earmarked in those reports to strike at least that section of the WAC language and go with the model code there. And so if we were already intending to strike 401.2, the striking of 401.4, as an amendment by Washington is not needed there, is kind of where I'm hearing this conversation going. I don't see it being a huge change in what's going on for this section within WAC. It's just a matter of making sure that the public has time to review what we have going. And in my opinion, if we make this change today and move it forward, that a whole week for time for public input at our committee meeting, then we have time for input at our council meeting, which at this point is slated for the first week of January. So there's a lot of time for people to digest that. And then once we get into the CR 102 phase, there's also time for additional public comment. And after we file CR 102 and get ready to have our public hearings, there is room for some modification in that phase of the adoption cycle. Ideally, it's only editorial, but if there are changes needed in response to public comment, we can make those and file our final rule at that point as well.
So if, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's not too late. Sorry, Josh.
With that in mind, just in the interest of time, I don't want to take up a lot of time on something minor. Is it appropriate for me to make a motion to do what you just said? And if it's not voted, then I'll just pull back my proposal because this is not our big fish on the table today.
But Josh, I was wondering if it's the simplest to simply withdraw this. And
It's
then at
not the most
committee-
important thing.
At the committee level, the committee can, my thought process is the committee can then introduce that substantial change to the section, right, Dustin?
If we withdraw the proposal, any of the changes we're talking about for the current WAC language can not be heard by the committee or the council. If the committee is, as a result of that, wants to make a motion to strike the WAC language for this section, I believe that is still an option that they could have there, and we could have a footnote for them to address that when we get to that meeting.
So I may be a little lost now. I would love, if possible, to make a motion for us to modify this to repeal the WAC language and make it a reserved section and recommend that to council, assuming we do have appropriate timing with the public. If that's not the case, then I'd probably just as soon withdraw this proposal unless everyone thinks I'm crazy.
I mean, we can make that modification here today. I don't mind doing that.
Okay.
I can do it pretty quick too.
Then I would, do I make the motion once you make the revisions, or do I make the motion now?
Go ahead and make the motion while you're doing it. I will make the edits.
Perfect. So I would make the motion that we repeal the WAC language, make a reserved section, and recommend that for full adoption to the council.
I second that.
Okay, thank you, Josh, and then Hoyt. We'll wait for it on the screen, but any discussion on that motion? So the motion would be to recommend this petition as amended, shown on the screen, to for adoption by the full council. I know that sounds funny, but everyone understand what we're doing?
Yes, there is that exception below from Dustin too.
Thank you.
Okay, so I trust Josh and Hoyt that captures your motion in a second.
Yes, that's correct.
My motion, yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
I just did a quick search back to the spreadsheet that Dustin had mentioned, and we actually did have a discussion about repealing 401.4 when we were doing the reviews of the current amendments. So
Good.
I know Dustin said he can't pull his up, but that's looks like he has kind of a long paragraph written in that 401.4 that essentially says this WAC amendment requires compliance with building code. Let's try to find the quick part is it suggested repealing existing state amendments. So
Well,
it is
I would say we've done proper public process. Okay, well, thank you for that, Mike. Okay, if everyone understands what we're doing, the motion second is to adopt or to recommend as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I
All those opposed? Okay, so with that, then
I'm in favor and said aye. I forgot to unmute. Just want to. I was
That's
just
okay.
a little bit behind. So
thank you, Hoyt. So that was unanimous. Thank you. Okay, with that, then petition 092 as amended is recommended for approval. Thank you.
And thank you, Tim, for reaching out and having us look at this a little closer. I think this is a better solution, so I appreciate you, sir.
And
Okay, that was a new one.
Thank you, Josh, for allowing us to simplify the code for once. Thank you.
That does feel good, right? Okay, no, agenda item 5 is petition 089. I think this is Joe.
hey, I'm here.
And I'm going to state, since I've helped a lot on this, it's best practice that the chair doesn't vote anyway, but I would recuse myself if it ever came to a deciding vote.
Yeah, thanks for the
advisory group here for working with me here and getting a number of different changes and revisions to this. I think it's been posted to the website and then hasn't been changed in a couple weeks now. So I guess big picture, maybe as a short preamble, just note that Washington State is a epicenter for mass timber and mass timber manufacturing. The Wood Innovation Network actually tracks mass timber projects, and Washington State has, according to their record, well over 100 mass timber projects. And we pre-adopted the new mass timber building types back in 2018 or 19. So there's been well over 5 years of using these mass timber projects and getting familiar with them. This particular code now, where proposal is looking at actually creating a new code section 510.10 to allow type 4B construction as a podium, all 3-hour primary load-bearing structure, 3-hour horizontal assembly, only allowing group R2 above the 3-hour horizontal assembly. Still limiting like 510.2, no high-rise construction. You have to stick with the building above construction type, height limits above the grade plane. We're allowing in this code, in this proposal, type 3A for HT or 5A to be above the horizontal assembly, fully sprinklered. Exit stairways over 6 stories be pressurized. And Dustin, could I share my screen for a second?
Yes, one moment. You should be able to click the button now.
Okay. And I'm not sure if everyone, let me see here. Okay, I think I got it. Not sure if everyone had a chance to review. The proposal now has a few amendments included. So I just wanted to really briefly go over a couple of those, kind of research studies. One was called RISE. This graphic is taken from the RISE report, where they're testing type 4B mass timber projects, full-scale fire tests. This is just looking at some like plan diagrams of these different compartments that they tested. So I'm showing tests 1, 2, 4, and 5 here. I'd like to draw your attention to tests 4 and 5, where we have fully exposed timber columns, fully exposed timber beams, fully exposed timber ceiling, and also some of the walls are fully exposed too, which actually in our proposal, we're not allowing any exposed mass timber walls to, eliminate the possibility or fire regrowth, which was actually found in test 3, which I'm not showing here. And then the red lines just indicate that there's gypsum board encapsulation. And so thinking about looking at tests 4 and 5, which has a lot of exposed timber, we go to the results. They actually ran these tests for 4 hours. And as we're proposing here, a 3-hour rated mass timber primary structure, you can see at the 180-minute mark, fire is, vastly diminished from the point of flashover. And then the test even ran another 60 minutes to continue tracking the results there with no fire regrowth. A part of that study, they've actually published a post-fire rehabilitation of CLT report as well. So getting at the question of what happens if there is a fire and how do you repair the CLT. This was another document in our references where they're testing glue laminated timber columns and beams for 3 hours. And the results of the study here show that the char rate was actually slightly slower than the approved calculated method for char. And these are just some like quick diagrams I put together looking at what this would mean. The yellow boxes would be the type 4B mass timber. Green would be type 5A and blue would be type 3A. So type 5A, Washington State would allow five stories with stair pressurization. So you could get potentially 2 more group R levels, or perhaps an A, B, M, R, S occupancy at the bottom. I don't think you could get more than 1 level just with the depth of mass timber structural framing. And then, similar for the 3A, you could potentially get 3 additional stories, or if you're not going with Group R residential below the 3-hour horizontal assembly, probably more like 2, given the structural depth of the timber members needed. So that was just a little kind of background on this particular proposal. So Dustin, I can pass it back to you now.
Hey, Joe, can you keep that up for just a second? And
Okay.
I have a couple of comments. Mike, your hand is still up from before, or did you have a comment on this? Okay.
Sorry, nope.
No, thank you. So if I could add a couple comments, and so for those of you that I think this is my day job, so that's why I would recuse myself, but also, but that's also my subject matter expertise. A couple things on here where we have heavily stakeholder this, and a lot of the input. There's always going to be a group of concern that just do not want a combustible structure in that podium. So that we've heard and tried to address those kind of considerations with probably three main important considerations. The type 4B, what that really means is type 4A is fully encapsulated. That was meant to be closer to a 1A structure. So everything is encapsulated by 2-3 layers of sheetrock of type X. The type 4B is type 4C is the other end, where everything's fully exposed, but it has smaller areas, lower height, so forth, at 85 feet. The type 4B is the one that the compartment fires in rise, which is what Joe showed there, was trying to get more data points. So in that, there was some learnings that we better understand the ceilings and the interfaces between a beam and the ceiling in particular, better understand columns, how they interact with radiation between vertical elements. So a couple of things in this you'll see is that, one, the 3-hour separation is still maintained, a fire resistant radius of 3 hours. That is not something that currently is contemplated in the calculated method, which means automatically, if someone wanted to do this, a manufacturer is going to go do testing to demonstrate that fire resistant rating, which is, in my opinion, a good thing, that we get more and more data points, that you'd have to test 3-hour columns and 3-hour floors. And the second part is that it removed any consideration for mass timber walls in this. So all walls would be non-combustible in this proposal. They would have to go an alternative materials design and methods approach if they wanted to try to introduce those in. And it's also partially just the reality of this type of construction, that structurally we would have to maintain the 2-phase approach, where the structural approach, where the bottom building has to be 10 times, essentially stiffer than the top. Those are really the additional considerations that are given to this proposal. Okay, I'm going to step down and go back to chairing here. Roger, I see you on the phone.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Sorry I was late, and I am in my car, so I can't look at the proposal. Joe, you had said you thought that you could only get 6 levels of residential because of the depth of the mass timber. Can you explain that a little bit? You're talking about the mass timber on the bottom 2 levels, is that correct?
Yeah. I think residential has pretty small spans. So if you're, have a 15-foot span or something like that, I mean, actually with 3-hour beams, they could still be potentially very large. So I think that's the implication. If you have an exposed 3-hour beam and you have more than, what a standard residential span for your floor structure, those beams are going to be pretty deep. So it might start to make, a traditional, like a 10-foot floor to floor or something like that for
Okay.
residential occupancy difficult.
What I would just toss out there is, I agree that the transfer deck is going to be relatively deep beams and mass timber. Depending on your column spacing. The second floor, which would be the floor of the residential that you're talking about, could be basically a point supported mass timber panel. We have done that on a residential. It was actually the first type 4A building down in Oakland. So I just want to, if you're starting to make decisions based on the typical floor to floor heights, I would suggest it is possible that the second floor could be much thinner than really deep glulam beams. So I'm sorry, I'm on my car. I didn't follow. I think that you concluded that you could only get 6 levels of residential and not 7. Is that what you concluded because of the floor to floor height?
No, I think one of the diagrams shows 7 for type 5A over 7. Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, I will let you guys, I can't look at the diagrams, but I wanted you to be aware that it would be possible for that second floor to be a flat, just a panel with no beams. And then my second question, I don't know if this came up, but last time there was a conversation, last time or in a conversation with somebody else about in the repair scenario, what happens if you have a fire in the mass timber portion below grade? And would you have to replace beams and all of that? I would suggest that should not be a consideration or a concern. Even if we have a post-tension concrete transfer deck, which is something we do all the time, there's serious concerns if there's a fire above or a fire below of, is that PT still, does it still work? Was it damaged in the fire or not? That is a difficult thing to determine, but I don't know why we would penalize this particular system, suggesting that it has to be immediately occupiable or something after a fire, when compared to a post-tension slab, it also would need some serious review and looking into exactly the condition of the post-tensioning tendons. So those are my thoughts. I'll continue to listen here.
Okay. Thank you, Roger. Wait, you're up.
Yeah, just a real quick question on the showing this. But one of the things that have gotten added to the code is the occupied roofs. Okay, so now you're going to have these buildings, or the ones that I see coming in Tacoma. Almost all these buildings that are this size, they put an occupied roof on it. And I didn't read in the proposal or how that dealt with it, because that is new in the code now. And it's possible you could have some issues with fire department access and things like that, especially on slope sites. I'm just bringing that up as a question. So, hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. I think we did add something in here for roofs. I want to say
I might have missed it then. I read over it quickly. So
Dustin, do you want to go back to the language?
Yeah. Let me
please
stop my share.
If you scroll down, Dustin, I hope it made it back into this.
Yeah, because I remember specifically thinking about that and talking about it.
Did this, when this broke out into its own section, did that part not come with it?
Yeah, maybe so.
it's an important point, Hoyt, that I think was intended to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we, that can get, I think, should be added in here if it's not already in here.
Yeah, I
And I
can't remember
know-
the discussion if when a couple edits came from Seattle, I can't remember if that was determined that was unnecessary because it's already applied somewhere else, but my memory's not helping me right now. Okay. Let's come back to that and we won't forget Hoyt. Tim.
Sorry, still muted. So I was looking into your comment that you made about how the height isn't allowed to be increased, but the number of stories theoretically is allowed to be restarted at this 3-hour separation. I still have concerns about switching a provision from a non-combustible provision that's always been in there to a combustible provision. And I think I voiced these same concerns with the e-occupancy provisions that we were looking at to 510.2. I would be amenable if we got to a point where the number of stories was limited to what the building above was, but it allows you to switch construction type, area, and firewall termination at this podium. That seems reasonable to me, and I don't know who decides what's reasonable, but it's one component that still concerns me. The second one is the pressurized stair provision that you have in here. You have it at 6 stories. We're going to have now a pressurized stair, whereas in several other examples where we utilize the story increases, we've always kept that at above 4 stories. Granted, this is a little different, but there is type 5A construction above there, and I guess I'm slightly concerned about the idea that we have 6 stories above grade plane without having pressurization in the stairwells. So those are just 2 comments that I had to throw out there and still say I have overall concerns about this proposal. Thank you.
Tim, if I may ask a question, can you go back down to 10, Dustin? Aren't you, so this is the same provision as the normal 510.2 with number 10 there. That's the allowable height, obviously, but you're saying you have concerns with the type 5A, 3A, or 4HT starting at that podium base at this horizontal separation, the number of stories? It's not, just to be clear, you're not saying it's not setting a type 4B number of stories on top of that podium, right? Everyone's clear on that?
Maybe I'm not clear on that. So if you go back to the very start of this proposal, it says that you can restart the stories at that horizontal separation. So now you're
Just
saying that number 10.
The building above.
Right.
And I asked because I was having a conversation with an architect the other day, and it got halfway through the conversation before I realized that it's not. I had to explain more clearly that the type 4B is only the bottom building. Doesn't mean and not the top building, right? Just like a normal 510.2 separation.
Correct. I understand that portion of it.
Okay.
Yes.
Micah?
Thanks as always, and appreciate everybody's work on this. I think it still has some holes. I know we're trying to get stuff pushed through and approved or at least looked at, but maybe this is an item that needs to remain open through part of the second go round here. A couple of things. The proposal online's kind of confusing. It of course says we're modifying 510.2, but now it's a new section of 510.10. Doesn't seem really correlated, especially with its positioning in 510 section overall. Another part of that is it correlated correctly with 510.9, which talks about multiple buildings above a horizontal assembly with these new or added provisions? And then just on the proposal itself, again, it's repetitive compared to where 510.2 stands, and a little confusing in that. But we've got a double number 7 here, and I think your second number 7, if you want to scroll down a little bit, John did some review on this. Sorry, he can't be here today, but he indicates this is not necessary. You can maybe modify it, but in 602.4, it talks about that it's already clear that type 4 construction, excuse me, is not to include stick framing or FRT. So not necessarily making sense to reduce the protection for stair enclosures. What we're getting at there is 602.4 already allows mass timber non-combustible framing. So once you eliminate all the other combustible materials in item 7, what's left is mass timber, so it's already allowed. So it's really, you could almost eliminate item 7 alone if you don't want to modify it. One of the two, modify it to where it's accurate or more accurate, or eliminate it. Eliminating is probably the best choice because we all like shorter codes. But again, I still think there's some correlation issues with this and a lot of open questions and concerns. Tim raised some others. There's been some others that have emailed back and forth. And again, just the overall written proposal, since it has been modified so much, is I'm not even sure where we're beginning and ending so far with this. You know, there's a lot of colors on here. Well, not a lot of colors, but comments in red. Item 6 on this list too is super long, and I'm not sure if it's completely accurate. I haven't had a chance to fully evaluate it. I think it is. But again, just an item maybe we need to keep open a little longer, have further discussions on it. I think we're close, but I don't think we're there yet to move this forward to the BFRW committee. I think that's the acronym now. Rapidly, at least for next week. That's my 2 cents. Appreciate all the work, but we still have some holes and some things we need to fix. Thanks.
This is Bill Maybush. I've joined the meeting late. Sorry.
Thank you, Bill. Welcome. Thank you, Micah. Julius?
Hi, I'm representing myself here. I'm just curious. I just want to comment on the pyre design for char of exposed mass timber. I don't know if the proponent or have already really looked into it in more detail, because I'm looking at the published pyre design specification by AWC. They only publish up to 2-hour char information. So I don't know how a designer can design an exposed mass timber for 3 hours. So, but I could be wrong, but that's just what I'm seeing in the published document by AWC. So.
Julius, I'll address that since this is my area. Yes, that's recognized that there's not currently a calculated method to take to 3 hours. Therefore, you'd have to test. You'd have to take the test pathway for 3-hour fire rating. But that is a pathway.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? I guess I think Micah picked up a couple of things there that are mistakes in the numbering and so forth. I'll say that the kick out to a new section was the recommendation of some of the stakeholders from Seattle, and then this section that's highlighted in gray, they're the same. So I think that is a question of whether or not that's appropriate. And so then I'll raise it. Really, the question is this worthy of continued public process? And that's kind of the consistency that we're trying to discuss here as a tag. Does this do you believe this should go forward for more public discussion in the committee and then ultimately rulemaking, or do you think this should end here?
This is Hoyt. I think it should end here, and it should go to or gets to more of a national standard. I don't think this makes us special in this state. So I personally, I don't think it's ready with the flaws that have been listed to other stuff. And I personally, if it was put to a motion to approve this, I would vote against it. So.
Howie, can you be more elaborate and point out the flaws for everyone?
Yeah,
We know the
so
numbering thing, but
yeah, the numbering thing was the other thing, and then I've also haven't seen the justification. I haven't seen the justification yet on a national level that this should be accepted, besides more of an opinion level. So, and that's a large building, obviously, being built, and I tend to not like to stick my neck out on something unless I have good testing data and more reasons to support this. So at this time, I'm going to vote against it because I haven't been convinced, based on the people that have testified so far, that this is something we should be special in our state. So let's,
okay,
as a life
Kelly?
safety thing, life safety issue.
Okay. So with that, Tig would have to take a motion here to do something. Someone have a motion?
Todd, this is Roger.
Yes.
Sorry, it's difficult to raise my hand. Before Hoyt spoke up, it sounds to me like we're relatively close for making it technically accurate with the numbering changes. I understand that we're under a tight timeline. I would ask Dustin if the intent is to publish all of these. When is the idea that we would approve all of these? Next Thursday?
No, the idea is to do that with agenda item number 18 if we get there today. If we
Okay.
don't get there today, I would like to do it Monday or Tuesday next week.
I was going to say, I understand we are trying to post these a week ahead of the BFRW meeting. Is that right?
Correct.
Well, 24 to 48 hours is the goal.
That's what I was going to say is I think we do have, if we needed to come back together on Monday and clean up the numbering, if that's the only thing that's holding us back, then I would suggest we move this forward. I think Hoyt's concern about whether or not the state of Washington should be out front, I think we are often. So I would almost, again, bringing us back to the technical committee, making sure that it is an appropriate technical document, recognizing that there is a question about should we allow this or not. I think that second question should get out for public opinion, broader public opinion, because I am I would have a tendency to approve it. I understand there's a little bit of a concern about fire, although I also know that the 3 hour, particularly if you're doing the testing, I kind of think I think that we would be okay. So I would like to see it move forward, even if it means a quick meeting on Monday before we go to the BRFW committee.
Okay. Thank you, Roger. Mike has got his hand up, and then Ken.
Thanks again. I don't want to see it die either, but I did mention more things than just renumbering. Just the overall proposal needs some cleanup. And then the question of correlation with the rest of 5.10.10. And then again, if this is an entirely new section, we should underline the whole thing. That would help. But
yeah,
I don't want to see it die, but just because we're under a tight timeline to get it maybe to one meeting, we have till December 1st of next year. Yes, we don't want to push into group 2, but we can. Maybe it's group B anyway, but we can, especially on things like this that have a significant impact and have a lot of complexities to it. Please don't rush it forward without cleaning it up. I'm not sure we're going to do that in one meeting, but hopefully we can. Thanks.
Thank you, Micah. Ken.
Yeah, and I'm just reiterating what Mike has said regarding, I mean, it's clearly in the proposal, it does state underline all new language. And since 510 is a completely new section, the proposal should show everything underlined as new. And so it's very confusing when I'm reading this because I've been jumping back and forth trying to figure out, okay, what's new, what's existing. Even though it says new section to read as follows, it says above that all new language shall be underlined, and it's not. And then my only other concern is just using the term podium. It's not defined anywhere, and I'm just wondering if it should be, because I didn't find anything in the 24 building code or WAC that defined podium, and I don't know if it needs to be or not. So I'm just asking that question generally.
Yeah, that's a good point. We always do use that informally. Hopefully it's not actually in here in that language, right?
Oh, it's right there, type 4 podium.
Where?
510.10.
Yeah, you know, let's cross that out then. I agree.
Yeah, let's cross that out.
That's a good point, Ken. Thank you.
Which section needs to be crossed out here?
No, I just in the title that we took from a recommendation, I agree with Ken that podium.
Yeah, just the word podium.
I mean, I'm not the expert in code
For
language,
clarity with the
whether titles are
proposal.
enforceable, but I think that's a valid point. So,
And just for clarity on this one, so Joe and Todd, this language was pulled from a different section, and that's why we're showing changes here to the section for
it
clarity.
was proposed that just break it out. Remember the comment in public media, and then there's additional one in email that
And
your
so
exception should be longer than the actual language.
Gotcha. So is anything shown as strikeout here, I should go ahead and remove from this proposal while we're talking about it?
Yeah.
You could.
Remember, the whole thing of 510.10 will be a total new section. So
Yeah. No, these are all valid points. It's partially this is the sausage making. Okay, but still we need an action of something. So, Mike, I appreciate that. I don't know what our pathway though is if we don't move it forward. I guess we technically could table it, but Dustin, I don't know what process we would be saying if we're not moving it forward in this group, right, to bring it back. We are trying to close up the group, and
yeah, I've been thinking about it, and we could, I guess, as a tag, not recommend this particular proposal to the committee, and I don't know if I don't think there's anything that's preventing us from taking this outside of the group 1 codes to work on a bit more outside of the timelines we're working with. I would hope that it doesn't take too much longer. I'd like to get the CR 102 drafted for the building code as one document. And if this were to, kind of hang out there until after that CR 102 is drafted, and filed, there would be a little bit of a procedural issue at that point. But I could see this being held off for the committee meeting that we have for next week, and getting it ready. And we're planning on having a council meeting that first week of January. There's another one coming up that third Friday in January as well. So we could potentially move this towards CR 102 at that second council meeting in January. There's a committee meeting the third week in January where we could bring this to the committee to, catch it up there. So if we had like straggling proposals, we could do that. I don't see there being any issue with that other than it gets a little, confusing to everybody when we have these kind of proposals hanging out there that are not denied nor moved forward.
Okay. Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, I just want to make a general comment. I understand with the new law, we are all focused quite heavily on process. However, I don't want, in my personal opinion, allowing process and the requirement that we be completely done by a certain date shouldn't take priority over making sure we come up with good code language and give proposals the proper consideration. So I'm certainly in favor of having this one straggle out, you know. I understand Dustin's trying to do it all at once and it would make sense, but I would really support the idea that we would shoot for the second January meeting to approve this one. And, you know, at the meeting next week, here's all the things we approve, and we have one item that is outstanding that we intend to resolve by, you know, and drop the date and give the dates. I just don't want process to drive coming up with the right answer from this group. That's my comment.
Okay, thank you, Roger. Go ahead, Micah.
Yeah, I agree with Roger on that. Again, if we're gonna try to move it forward today, we should just sit here and clean it up, but I don't think we have time to do that. Again, the question, it not answered the second number 7 here. It's not necessary. Do you want to modify it or strike it? Because the language is inaccurate. Then I brought up section 510.9. There are reference numbers to 510.2 and 510.9 of the 2024. If your intent was to modify 510.2 originally, I would assume that you'd want to correlate that section or allow that section to point back to, or to point back or point to 510.10. Again, we got some correlation items. We're close. I don't want to make it die, but I don't think we're going to make the deadline. Maybe we can make it by Monday if you're going to have another meeting. But I would urge you not to push this forward as written unless we modify it, please. But keep it open.
Okay.
We're almost there.
Okay, good points, Micah. Okay, so I think I'm hearing two options here. One, the tag has the new authority to deny something and kill it. So that's one option we can have a motion for. Second option is probably simply to table it, and we're going to sort it out what the pathways are if they exist after this, and we move on with our meeting. Does that sound right to everyone?
Yeah, and I make a motion to table it.
Okay, thank you, Hoyt.
Could I clarify, maybe ask if that's a friendly amendment to Hoyt, table it to be outside of the rest of the group 1 package, so we're not moving it towards the committee meeting just yet.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, is there a second?
Second, Brett Conway.
Okay, thank you, Brett. Okay, so any other discussion? It's been moved and seconded to table petition 089. This is revision 4 as shown on the screen. Outside of the bundle we're going to hear today. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Tim, I'm just gonna go through the vote. No. Okay, now Tim, sorry.
I guess I don't know where we're at because I was trying to raise my hand before you got to the vote.
I'm sorry, I rushed into it. Okay.
So if the vote went through, it is what it is. I don't know how I wanted to vote, but I just want to comment because there's a lot of comments going back and forth about, you know, the process and how we shouldn't kill things here and they should move on to this greater process. This is nothing new. There's several great ideas that go through multiple years of code cycles, and I get that we want to get it in this code cycle. But I'm getting a little, I guess, taken back by the idea that we're not taking action and moving items either back or forward. So I feel like that's a lot of what the intention was behind this new law, was to say there's several great ideas, but they're not always going to be ready for prime time at this time. So in my opinion, when you look at this provision, we've identified several times, it's come back several times, and we are kind of running up against what our preferred timeline is. It's okay for us to deny these and say, in 3 years, you get another shot at this. And I just want to get that opinion out there because I'm not hearing it much. So in that context, if we were to re-vote, I would be voting against this and saying, hey, in 3 more years, you can come back when this is ready. So I just want to get that opinion out there because there's a lot of opinions on the opposite end of that. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Tim. I think it's fair, and I'll take the criticism because perhaps I'm being overly sensitive on our process in this new world. Dustin, to that point, I'm not a parliamentarian. Is there an opportunity to take a revote? Because if Tim's intent was to document a no vote, I would want to capture that if possible.
I think we can do a revote on that, yes.
Okay, unless anyone's opposed, who knows better than I do. If everyone's okay with that, then we'll take the same motion in a second to table this outside of the package. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna move that to roll call. We have a split vote. We're gonna go to roll call on it. My apologies.
Hey, Joe Mayo,
Aye.
Tim Woodard,
Nay.
Lance Dahl,
Aye.
Hoyt Jeter,
Aye.
Bill Mybush,
Aye.
Josh Mergens,
Aye.
Brett Conway,
Aye.
Michael Barth,
Nay.
Paul Clark.
Aye.
With that one, the motion to table and move outside of the group one package passes 7-2.
Okay, thank you, everyone. That wasn't my smoothest transition there, but I think we did it. Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the next one. Agenda item 6 is petition 091.
Hey, Todd,
Yes.
can I state Brian Horseman is now in attendance?
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Brian, would you like to cast a vote on that one?
Vote aye.
Okay, so then it would pass 8-2.
Okay. Okay, 091.
091. So to be clear on this one, I posted the revision 3 document, and last minute before this meeting, I discovered by mistake there is a revision 4 out there that was moved for approval by the fire code tag. And so I'm going to bring up both documents, and Ken Brulette is here to talk on them. And so here on the left,
No, I'm gonna only talk on revision 4.
okay,
Because
I just want to bring them both up.
Yeah. And then on revision 4, there's one additional. I thought we caught this in the meeting, but so this proposal. Well, no, you got the wrong one up.
So this one here.
This is you're in 510. You want?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Chapter 9, so.
I'm sorry. There you go. Oh, I'm in number 510 for both of them. Apologies. Okay, so this is the one for Ken.
So on the right-hand side, we have the 903.3.1.3. Can you scroll the left-hand side to the same section? So, and I'll briefly explain what the fire code, if you can go back up to that, where it has the IBC. Yeah, so it looks. So you can see what we did to the proposal is that we just concentrated and deleted out adding those additional sections 8.4, 8.5, and the 8.1. We thought it was better just to look at the existing 903.3.1.3 and just make some small changes. Well, the small change was adding the word units after townhouse. But I realized that the reprinting of this section, the 24 code says and townhouses. So there's an S that needs to be shown, and then it needs to be shown struck out. So if you could do that in each one, because the 24 code has an S, And it's going to look really funny when you strike it out because it's going to look like the E is struck out too, but it really
Yep.
isn't. But if you could do that in both sections, that would be the minor change to that existing R4 for just, and this is a clerical thing more than anything else, but the word units was just in there to clarify and to match the footnote J. So if you scroll down now to the footnote, and it's just, I'm sorry, go back up to the table a little bit. And then if you can go on the left-hand side and we'll look at the table there too. So there was a footnote J that was added. And it is underlined, I'm sure, in that proposal. This is very hard to see in your split screen right now. But it is underlined under the type 5 and the 1540. So there's a footnote J. So then if you can scroll down to J, you'll see where it got tweaked. And so the J got tweaked to say for 1 and 2 family dwellings and townhouse units to correspond with the 903.3.1.3 change. Shall be, I'm sorry, I was reading 2 screens. For 1 and 2 family, the height shall be permitted increase to 60 feet instead of how we had it on the left-hand side with just townhouses. So we just wanted to make sure it was clarified it was townhouse units. And then the same thing then in 504.4. Scroll down to there. So we entirely deleted out the 13D section. It was more appropriate. It was thought by everybody who was at the tag meeting and the fire code tag to just have the J footnote next to the type 5 13R system there, and then also in the R3 under type 5A and type 5B construction. And then you have the same footnote below J in that table. And again, just changing it to for 1 and 2 family dwellings and townhouse units. And then we eliminated the section on the left-hand side that talked about fire resistor rated construction and all those exceptions, because there's already in, and I think I still have it written down here from last week, 712.1.2, I believe is the section in the fire code or in the building code that already says that does not apply to those type of structures. So that's one reason we eliminated it. So during the IFC tag meeting, it was well attended. We had SDCI, we had Ardell Jala, our building official there. Micah was there. BIAW, of course, was there, our sprinkler industry. So we went through this and approved what you see as revision 4. With the only exception was to what we just talked about in the 903.3.1.3 by the editorial of deleting the S for townhouses and make it just say townhouse units. That was the only thing that was changed from the revision 4 that I saw, but everything else, I appreciate all the help that people put forward for this to get it through the IFC tag, and just looking for the IBC tag to correlate it so it can move forward.
Okay, thank you, Ken. We have a question from Patrick.
I was just gonna say thank you to Ken for all the work that he's put in on this and all the folks that have contributed, like Micah and other tag members. I think this is a really great proposal to sort of address kind of a niche case where you can have some 4-story townhouse units and lower the cost for them a little bit while maintaining a good fire safety. And the fire tag already approved this, so hoping that the building tag can move this forward. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Patrick. Wait, no?
No, I just put it down. Could you help me? You have the non-sprinkler where you have 40, 50, 65, all that stuff. And then you have the footnote I where you go 40, 50. What is footnote I again?
That's an existing state amendment that I had nothing to do with.
No, okay. So then J, that's the one where you're allowing it for 1 and 2 family dwelling units. Can you go back up to the table real quick? Okay, so why would anybody then, just asking this question here, why would anyone build a group R 13D system ever?
You mean because it's allowed?
Yeah, but you could do non-sprinklers and
No,
you
not
got a
that.
much.
Look at the footnote, non-sprinkler, that is, look at footnote D.
Oh, it's only for existing buildings. Okay, gotcha. Okay, never mind.
Oh my God, I actually answered a question of Hoyt's. That's new. Normally he stumps me all the time and I'm fumbling around going, oh my God, how do I answer this question? But I got that one right.
Sorry, Ken.
You always get me. I always get nervous when Hoyt speaks up. I'm like, oh gosh.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Talk about keeping me on my toes.
Go ahead, Micah.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Ken. I appreciate the modifications.
Oh,
to
and
this.
if you say a proposed change, I'm gonna kill you.
I'm not going to propose a change. There's still a gap, and we still don't address when a townhouse, not the townhouse unit, a townhouse is an R2, but we're not going to fix it in this proposal. I think what you got is fine. I'm going to say let's pass it. And if there's something we can fix and identify later, once these get more prevalent, then we will do it. But thank you. I was going to say we should support it.
I love you,
But
Micah.
again, we still have a little bit of hole that we can fix. I don't think it's going to be major enough to where we can't address it, or it cannot be addressed through interpretation at this point. But I appreciate all the help and work and suggestions. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Micah. Okay, if there's nothing else, is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Thank you,
Mrs.
Hoyt.
Hoyt.
Second, Lance.
Okay, thank you, Lance. So it's been moved and seconded that petition 091 revision 4 as amended on the screen is recommended for approval by the full council. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, with that, 091 is recommended. Thank you, Ken, and everyone else. Agenda item 7, let's see here, it's 2:30, let's keep going. Agenda item 7 is petition 117, revision 2.
Okay, so this one also went through the fire code tag, and the fire code tag just made a change, but doesn't affect the building code with regards to the exception, because that 1207.1 is not in the fire code. 1207, I mean, the building code 1207.1 is only in the fire code. So let me just, so I'm just trying to figure out, we got to scroll down to the building code section. And I don't think there was any change in there. I think this was more of an awareness that we took the original proposal and added in that and 855. So in the the 907.2.23, I think that's the building code section. It's right above the section 5 of the document.
Oh, sorry, I passed it. There it is.
There you go. So that's the language that is that the building code tag needs to approve. It was just, we wanted to make sure awareness that we did add in to the fire code the reference to NFPA 855 on the top above. So I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Hoyt real quick. Just to let you know, 1207, it's enhanced classroom acoustics. So there may have to be some numbering.
No, remember the 1207 is only in the fire code. There is no 1207 in the building code for energy storage systems.
Right, but 1207 in the building code, right, is
But-
enhanced classroom acoustics.
Okay, I understand that, but I'm not showing any changes to that section. I'm only showing changes to 1207 in the fire code, and then what he's showing up on the screen right now is
Oh,
the
it's just
only,
907. Got it.
yeah,
Okay.
it's just 907.2.23 that's reprinted in the building code. So hopefully that makes sense, where we're just adding thermal imaging detection system in there and just revising the numbers. So that's all I'm
Yeah.
looking for, is just approval for basically that correlated section. The 1207 part was already approved by the IFC tag.
Okay. Any other questions, or do we entertain a motion?
This is Tim. I'd make a motion to approve this and send it on to full council.
Second.
Tim? Thank you, Hoyt. Any other discussion? Okay, it's moved and second, the petition 117 revision 2 be recommended for full approval by the council. All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, with that, revision or petition 117 is recommended. Okay, thank you. We're gonna go on to agenda item 8, which is petition 071 revision 2.
This one's a Ken Brulette one as well. And
So this
Yeah.
is, yeah, so this is the carbon monoxide rewrite that was done. And if you could just go ahead and again, scroll all the way down to just above number 5 again. So this was the 2027 rewrite of this section, and Jeff Shapiro rewrote it. He was asked to rewrite it because the 24 code, as printed right now, has a lot of issues. So they decided to put together a 2027 proposal. What we had to figure out, and John Sue helped, I believe it was one of the tag meetings, is to look at the existing state amendment and figure out how to deal with these Group E occupancies. So what you see here is the rewrite of that section. And what you don't see is there was an additional sentence, I believe, that was added in that we deleted out. And I want to make sure, Dustin, it wasn't that second sentence that's in there that's showing there.
so this one here.
Yeah, didn't at the last tag meeting didn't we delete that? And I'm just asking if anybody else remembers in attendance that did we end up deleting that for clarification?
I don't think so, because
Okay, let
this
me,
is my most current revision on this one, but I can.
yeah,
I
can we
dig
find,
into a little bit.
yeah, if we can look at revision 1, maybe. I just want to make sure, and I,
Okay. The revision 1. I have that there, and then I have the language by John Sue here. Let me see if that. So I don't know if this actually got struck out and approved at the fire code tag. I'd have to go back and watch that meeting, because when we make these modifications, you see me saving as a new revision on the fly right there. And so I don't have a revision saved that has this sentence struck out.
So can I ask this of the chair? Can we table this until I would like, since I don't have anything else to present, I'd like to be able to review that meeting and see if we did delete that section or not, and then maybe we can come back to it.
Okay.
And I know Mike
Are you
might
going to
have
review now and
yeah, I'm gonna
potentially even
write
today?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to
Okay.
review it while the meeting's going on to make sure we did delete that. If Micah remembers too, I don't know.
Go ahead, Micah. Yeah.
I don't know if I remember. I think the only time I listened or saw this one is when we kind of mentioned it at the IBC tag meeting that you weren't at, Ken. And I had some questions, and if Jeff were here, he would say, why didn't you bring this up at the national level? But I just don't have enough time. But my question, I think, at the previous meeting was about the definition. It's really long and wordy. I mean, if we're going to adopt this early, maybe we should make it better. My question was the first sentence of the definition. Again, I don't have anything to say about John's revision. John's probably 100% accurate. But when we talk about the definition, it's a combustion process that has the potential to produce carbon monoxide as a product of combustion under normal or abnormal conditions. It's really long and wordy. And my question is there anything other than normal or abnormal?
Or I remember you talking about this one, Micah, and it was like, is there any other kind of combustion that we would like? Should it just be combustion?
Right. Should it just be a product of combustion?
Yeah, I got no problem tweaking that if it to make it more sense, but you know, somebody more intelligent than me put the language together. And I don't know
Jeff
where
would probably say we should have brought it up earlier, but I don't know. Again, it's just not a clear definition. There were some other things, but again, it's not that major. You want to table it, we can talk about it and come back.
Yeah, I just, you know, I can see if I can, I don't think there was any comments at the national level on that definition at all when it got pushed through and approved. But I would love to table it just so I can double check that second paragraph since it has to deal with the state amendment.
Do we need a formal action to table it and move it to before or after agenda item 17? Or can we just, Dustin, procedurally, can we just
I
move
think
on?
we can move on with it and bring it back. And Ken, I guess when you have
Yeah, or when you're ready, Ken. That's
yeah,
a good plan.
yeah. I'll share my screen and show the video that once I get to that point.
Okay.
So,
okay.
All right. Thanks.
Let's just pause on that one. Then that'll be my technical term. That's 071, right? Okay, so let's go to agenda item 9, which is 037, revision 1.
Just real quick, I want to make sure I get Ken to the right meeting on that one. That one was at our December 3rd meeting, Ken, is when we did that one.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Okay, then agenda item 9 is 037, revision 1.
We've got stuff becoming. Give me one moment. I gotta clean up some windows here.
Mm-hmm. Who from, this is Wabo, right? Who from Wabo is here to join us, if anyone? Go ahead, Ken. Do you have the answer already?
Yeah, I just somehow found it really stinking quick. So I don't know if you can let me.
Yep, we're back. Let's go 071.
Okay, can you, I'm sending a request to share my screen.
There you go.
Okay, thanks. So you can see this is what just got approved. This is Dan saying, okay, right now we have a motion, a second, and for any discussion, and it clearly shows that second sentence deleted, right, compared to the proposal.
Hmm.
And that section's not in this one more than once, is it?
No, I do not. Well,
It is. So we have the here. Can I share my screen again and I'll show you what I got?
okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No worries. Screen two. Okay, so in here we have the section shown for the fire code up top, and then he's got the building code below it.
You'll have to share your screen. I'm sorry.
Oh, I didn't finalize it. I'm sorry. There we go. So what I show here, this is the same document we just had up, but this is the sections within the fire code, and they're same in the fire code versus the building code. Is that an accurate statement, Ken?
Yeah, the 915.4.2.3 is what
Okay.
section I was showing also. And
So
it
we have,
shows, yep, shows that deleted.
and then scrolling down, we were looking at the section right above the explanation statement, and that second sentence wasn't struck here.
Yeah, and it should be
At
because
the
it's the
fire.
same, yeah, it's the same section.
So when you were speaking about it, it rang a bell, but I didn't remember that we had a duplicate section here. So if we show strikeout, that will align with what was adopted in the fire code tag.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good catch. Okay, was there anything else on this proposal? Go ahead, Micah.
Since we're talking about this proposal, coming back to it. Question, Ken, is the intent of 915 of the fire code to apply to 1 and 2 family dwellings?
Let me go back up. I don't think there's anything and I would just double check. I don't think anything is referenced for 1 and 2 family dwellings in here. Because if they're built, I don't think there's anything that says, because the IRC already has their stuff for this. So I don't.
My question is,
yeah, I don't
it
see
is
that there.
specific to 915 2.4 that talks about dwelling units and sleeping units. As long as it doesn't apply to 1 and 2 family, because the IRC does have different requirements. And then
And so one
Go
of the
ahead.
things since we still have that whole other group coming up, the IRC, that was going to be one of my goals, is to look at the IRC and see if there has to be any correlation done with this.
and then I haven't gone through as much of this proposal as I'd like. The current 915 in the building code only applies to new construction, and existing construction would be per chapter 11 of the IFC. Are we modifying chapter 11 of the IFC with this proposal? Because 915.1 of this proposal now requires new and existing buildings to provide more or less as new, not as existing. It was previously different. So again, I think this is going a little further than the current code, and I'm not sure that's been fully discussed here. Again, we're wanting to adopt this early. It's going to come into play 2021 or 2027, but again, just because there wasn't comments at the national doesn't mean it's completely accurate.
No, I totally understand, but no, that was exactly what the change was in the fire code, 1103.9, is just for existing buildings, you go back to new building requirements for 915.
Okay. Wait.
Yeah, I was talking about Micah, and that's what I wanted, is to actually for existing buildings to install carbon monoxide ones like that. So I wanted to make sure that was caught. So, you know, hopefully nobody else's hands come up, but I don't see. Am I correct? Because I'm ready to make a motion if I can.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to move this forward to the full council.
Thank you. Wait. Is there a second? Do we have a second?
This is Bill, I'll second it.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that 071 revision, well, 3 now on the, as shown on the screen. Go ahead, Tim.
My proposal would be to strike the existing. So I wouldn't be in favor of this. I think if we have separate requirements for existing buildings outside of existing buildings in the fire code, it's only going to create confusion of when this applies. Currently, if you're reviewing an existing building, you wouldn't go to any new building sections. So this would be the first time we've ever done that. So I think it would be a great proposal. I agree with everything in it, except for that existing building portion that Micah pointed out. We kind of need to strike that and add that to chapter 11.
Okay, go ahead, Ken.
So Tim, can you explain that? Because the 1103.9 is in the fire code. So where are you seeing in the building code that it's in this proposal that it's talking about existing buildings? Because that 1103.9 is
It's 915.1.
915.1. Okay, can you scroll up to that? Got it. So if you just wanted to,
So you would just strike out, you would just say
And-
new buildings shall be provided with carbon monoxide detection. Existing building code should be in the IEBC.
yeah, I would be fine with that strike through if, because I think the fire code still would point to that and just say, hey, if you're an existing building, you got to deal with it. And I think I'm fine with that.
Is there another section that's duplicated there?
Yes, I'm gonna get to it here.
Hoyt, do you take that as a friendly amendment?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I forget who the second was. Bill?
Yes.
Okay,
Second.
thank you, Bill.
Now Jeff might kill me for suggesting that, but oh well, you know, it's Washington. We're special.
Okay, now it's been moved and seconded that 071 revision 3 is as amended on the screen has been recommended for approval by the full council. Go ahead, Micah.
Ken, I got one more question on the power source correlation that you're bringing, or you're striking a chapter 1103 or section 1103. I'm reading the exception for the power source for existing buildings. It doesn't seem to correlate with the current standard. The current standard said if the code in effect at the time of construction did not require carbon monoxide detectors, you could do battery operated. The new language says for existing buildings not previously required to have carbon monoxide alarms permanently connected to a wired source, existing battery powered and plug-in with battery backup alarms shall be permitted. If they're existing, you wouldn't get any new ones to be battery powered. Is that the intent? Again, it sounds like you're wanting in existing buildings, if you're going to put them in now, you have to have them wired and not battery powered. Yeah. And Dustin, if you want to scroll up to section 915.411 right there. The exception sentence just seems off.
Anyone have a response?
Wasn't right here when you're talking about the battery, we have wireless now that works, which wasn't when it was originally put in. And so the way I've looked at this thing is you would have battery backup with the wireless one. You wouldn't have to actually have for existing buildings. I thought that's what it read in the existing building code.
Well,
And I think that's what he's saying, isn't it? Doesn't have to be physically wired, right?
so now I see a problem when we delete the word existing. If you delete the word existing, now it's going to mess up that exception. So that was a problem with trying to fix something with existing on the fly.
Yeah.
Now messed up with the exception. Yeah, I don't.
And,
I don't
and
have an
hopefully
answer.
other folks are reading this section real quick while it's up on the screen. Am I reading my interpretation of that language incorrect? It's saying if it doesn't have buildings without wired power source, carbon monoxide alarm shall be battery powered. So if it's got a wired source, even as an existing building, and you put a new carbon monoxide detector in, it's got to have wiring. It cannot be battery powered. Even the exception says that. You can only do battery powered when you have existing battery powered. I'm sorry, Dustin, are you saying something? I couldn't hear you.
I just say I agree with you.
The thing is, when you read the last sentence, when replacement with battery powered and plug-in with battery backup coverage. So
But
that's all
not for-
battery.
But that's not for new. So if you're replacing, yeah, you can replace with like in kind, but if you're gonna add a new one, you gotta wire it in.
Even in existing construction. I'm not sure that's the intent, Ken. If it is, I think you probably get fewer carbon monoxide detectors put in than I think where you wanted to go with this.
So I'm gonna just read the exception. For existing buildings, not previously required to have carbon monoxide alarms permanently connected to a wired power source. All right, so I have an existing building that I just have battery operated ones. Existing battery powered and plug-in with battery backup carbon monoxide alarms shall be permitted to remain in service. Okay, great. I have existing ones, they're permitted to remain in service. But if I replace them, then I can replace them with just battery powered and plug in with battery backup carbon monoxide alarms shall be permitted. So I don't have to hardwire in if I'm replacing one after its expiration. That's how I
Correct.
read that exception.
I agree with you 100% there. But this says existing buildings shall have carbon monoxide detectors. That's the charging language.
No. Where does it say existing buildings? I thought we just took that out at the beginning. This is just an exception.
But if you have 1103 as currently written or proposed, 1103.9, you're striking it out and saying carbon monoxide detection shall be installed in existing buildings in accordance with section 915. That means you shall put them in existing buildings.
And if I have an existing building, then I'm allowed to put in battery operated ones.
And where doesn't say that?
Well, under power source, under the exception for existing buildings, if I currently.
I'm not reading that the same way. And if somebody else is, let me know. I'm reading that as if you have an existing building and you put in a new carbon monoxide detector as required by section 915, it has to be wired. It's not allowed to be battery powered.
And I don't read it that way. So, but
I'm reading it like Ken's reading it for the exception.
So I'll just add that I'm also reading it like Ken's reading it for most scenarios, but picture a scenario where you add a new bedroom in or add, I don't know, something to the requirement of it's going to trigger a new carbon monoxide detector, not a replacement of an existing one, because there's no exception for existing buildings, because the exception is only if you replace an existing one. There could be a possibility that there's a problem. In the end, I feel like that possibility is very, very slim because we only require theoretically carbon monoxide detectors outside of existing bedrooms. And theoretically, 9 times out of 10 or even 99 out of 100, it would already be in place. So you could just replace it. But there's at least the possibility that something happens with the remodel to where you have to add in brand new ones. So not replacement, and then trigger them to all be wired in an existing building. But if there was that level of remodel, you would think you could get them wired. So I think I'm still at this point in favor of moving forward with the motion. And although there's a possibility of a problem, it's very, very, very slim in my mind.
yeah, and I'm also in favor of moving it forward too.
Go ahead, Micah.
I appreciate it, folks, but I'm gonna boldly disagree. When you read the proposal, section 1103.9, Dustin, can you scroll there, please? 1103.9 is the current code language. It allows you, or excuse me, it requires you to install carbon monoxide detectors in existing buildings, regardless of any type of, at this point in the proposal, modification to the structure. Again, this is if you have an existing building, you're required by the fire code to install carbon monoxide detection, period. That's what this states. The new language also states carbon monoxide detection shall be installed in existing buildings in accordance with 915. There's no, if you're doing a remodel, there's no anything else. It's, you shall put it in per 915, which is new construction. There is no longer the exception number 1 under this list, the current code language of 1103.9, that says you can install battery operated. Again, that's where I'm getting this, your power source completely goes away from battery operated to in all existing buildings based on this charging language that you shall install per 915, which is new construction with power source being wired. That's my argument. Thanks. I think it's inaccurate as proposed.
Okay. Tim.
I would just circle back to, this is a requirement in the fire code, which is not under our purview right now. I am now seeing what Mike is saying. Say you have an existing building with no carbon monoxide detectors in it. This provision would almost seemingly say that you have to put them in, and because they're not a replacement, they have to be wired. But that would be a change to the fire code. And today, what we're voting on is only the changes to the building code, which don't have those provisions within them. So, just kind of itemizing what we're actually looking at, I think is important in this conversation. But I would highly recommend that the fire code tag or we submit comments at the state building code to clarify what's meant in that section.
Okay. Micah.
Thanks, Tim, for pointing that out. This is not a building code proposal. However, the current language in the building code and the 2024 building code, 915, which is duplicative for the most part. However, 915.1 of the current building code or 2024 building code says carbon monoxide detection shall be installed in existing buildings in accordance with Chapter 11 of the IFC. This proposal eliminates the 1103.9 and sends you to 915. So again, this is, I think that's why it's here, is to coordinate it with the building code, and this is way beyond what the current code does today. And you're going to get more existing structures to have to require wired, powered carbon monoxide detectors.
Go ahead, Russell.
Yeah, so when I'm looking at this, the existing building section, it refers back to installing it per 915, but then are in accordance with 915. And when you go through 915, it allows for in 915.4.1 carbon monoxide alarms, which would be the battery powered ones. So I guess I'm not seeing the issue because it just resets it to being installed in accordance with 915, and you go through 915 and you get to the exceptions that allow for carbon monoxide alarms in place of detectors.
Okay, thank you, Russell. Hoyt.
Yeah, and also when you look at the listings that have that, they have the listing ones that are not wired. They could be wireless and things like that. So I don't think we have that problem anymore. So wireless is the same as wired in our interpretation because of the listings by UL has those things listed like that. So I don't think there's a problem. I don't think it'll be an interpretation problem. And I don't think they're going to make the whole house be wired with hot wiring it and stuff like that. So I don't think there's an issue.
Okay. Tim?
I think it's key to point out, interconnection interconnection or interconnectivity is a separate issue versus power source. So, you know, yes, we use a lot of wireless or not wired together listed devices, or we can use those now. But this goes back to the power source provision. So I do think there is an issue in the fire code. And I think for consistency, we still need to move forward the building code provisions. And we need to go through the public process, theoretically, at the State Building Code Council to get that Chapter 11 in the fire code modified at this point, if that's been already recommended for approval by the council. Because otherwise we're going to run into all sorts of issues if we don't have the building code correlated to it. But I'm more understanding Micah's concern now, and it is cases where there's nothing there to begin with, I think.
Okay. Mike?
I guess a question for both Ken and Micah is, if we removed the strikeout, if we essentially rejected the change to 1103.9, would that solve the problem, or would that create more problems?
Well, this is what I'm hoping for as the proponent, is that you guys move this forward, and either at the Building Code Council or during the public comment section, I'm going to take a closer look at 1103.9 in the fire code and see if we can, you know, unconfuse this just a little bit, and maybe just propose something at that time. So that's my opinion on this.
Okay. Go ahead, Micah.
My answer to Michael would be that would solve the issue, because it would still allow for those existing ones to be battery powered.
Okay.
Again, if we're trying to modify this further, then sounds like we can work with Ken on it as all.
Yeah, and that might happen in the proposal, but I need to double check and correlate all the numbers that we struck out, because I don't know if things were numbered the same or not. And that might be an easy fix to do that, but I don't want to take the time right now to try to do it. I would love to try to pick it up in, you know, public.
Well, the fire package will go through tomorrow, but then technically next Friday, the 20th, is time to unconfuse it still. So if that's the best path forward.
But it also doesn't mean I can't bring it up tomorrow if I attended that meeting, right?
Correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I'll do it from the car. I'll try.
Okay.
So
Okay.
For today's discussion, then, would it, you know, if we're trying to just at least move forward the best as we think is currently possible, if we removed the strikeout on 1103.9, then at least it's initially done, and then perhaps that's what then could be perfected later on.
And then maybe that correlation committee can correlate, hey, the fire code tag did this, the building code tag did this, even though it's a fire code section. I don't know.
Go ahead, Tim.
Reconvene the correlation group again. I just, you know, I think what they're asking for is for us to move on the building code language. And I think Ken's got a viable option for clarifying what's in 1103.9.
I think Dustin
Yeah.
just basically covered my comments. I think all in all, I don't think we have the authority to modify or to unstrike the fire code provisions, as that is the fire code and not part of this tag. So I just think that us moving forward the building code sections with a correction of that, which Ken is committed to at this point, I heard him say that, I'm pretty sure, then I'm all favor.
Okay. And that'll happen tomorrow at the committee, considering the fire code. And then we have the building code next Friday. At the committee level.
What time's the meeting tomorrow?
It's going to be at 1 o'clock.
All right. I'll see if
I
I
have a
can.
couple opinions to go through first as well. So, but you know, even if it's not fixed at tomorrow's committee meeting, I think your plan of addressing it in the public comment portion of that will is still a viable option.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Russell?
That's all right. Yeah, when I spoke before, I pointed out the wrong code. reference, but the 915.411 for power sources does have an exemption for existing buildings not previously required to have carbon monoxide alarms permanently connected to a wired power source, and allows for battery or plug-in.
But I think that was the point of the comment that brought this whole conversation about, is that if there's no carbon monoxide detector in this specific theoretical building, if you don't have a power source, you're gonna have to wire it in with a new detector.
Okay, I guess I'm
For the
misunderstanding or misreading that, because the way I'm reading it, it seems to me that that would allow for battery or plug-in with battery backup.
If you're
That's
replacing an existing one.
Okay, I guess I was misunderstanding that then. Thanks.
I think there's a division of how everybody's understanding that section a little bit for sure. But that was Micah's point of contention, is that when there's an existing unit, you can replace it with like in kind for battery backup. But if you have to install a new one, it doesn't exempt you from having to place the circuits in there for permanent wiring.
Thanks.
Tim, thank you, Russell. Tim, did you lower your hand?
Yeah, I think Dustin basically hit it. It
Okay.
definitely says existing in that same sentence he's pointing out, so.
Okay. Okay, then with that, is there a motion then? I think I'm understanding the plan here.
We still have a motion on the table, Mr. Chair, to
Yeah.
recommend adopt.
Oh, I forgot about that. Okay. We haven't changed anything since then. We just discussed, right?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so the motion was Hoyt and then I forget.
And Bill.
And Bill, thank you. Okay. We're ready to vote then. The motion and second is to recommend for approval by the full council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so that's 071 recommended for approval. It's 3:07. Do we need a quick 5-minute break here?
I would appreciate one.
Yeah, likewise. Okay, let's do, we'll just say 3:13.
Very sorry, but I'm gonna have to sign off. This is Bill. Hopefully you still have a quorum.
Thank you, Bill.
We're gonna be good, Bill. Thank you, though.
Okay, 3:30.
Hey, Dustin, I need to take off. This is Brett Conway.
Okay. Okay, welcome back. We'll jump right in here. You're kind of monitoring Dustin, right? Make sure everyone's
Yeah, it's hard to tell if everybody's back right away, but let me just make sure. And then, who was it that bounced off right at the end?
Bill.
Bill. Okay. So with Bill gone, we're still sitting pretty with 10 out of 8 seats
Right.
10 of 8 needed for quorum, I should say.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on to agenda item 9, which is petition 037 revision 1. That was the vehicle.
This one is a wobble 1 for 11. Oh, it's got to do with the handicap space sizes.
Yeah. Micah, were you or someone else gonna talk to this one again?
I am here, but I also think Rich Williams is on.
Oh yeah, Rich, are you wanting to speak to this again? Can
It may not be
anyone
from
else
the
remind
right
us here?
place.
Sorry, go ahead. Who's that? Rich, are you on?
If he's not, I can talk about it. I
Okay.
think it's just a cleanup to be more accurate with what we do in this section. For the state, we talk about electrical charging stations for this section and have a pointer to 429. And this is just an accurate cleanup of that. And I think we could probably scroll down to the reason statement and leave it at that. Keep it short. I know I talk a whole lot on other things, but sometimes we'll try to keep it shorter.
Does everyone remember this? Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to also comment to something Rich probably would have pointed out is the state's requirement for the van accessible aisle is different than out of a 117.1. We require the full 8-foot aisle for van accessible. And so that's what one of the things this does is it removes that discrepancy and that problem. So it is a cleanup, I believe, of essentially based on to make it consistent with our current state requirements for the accessible parking.
Okay. Any other questions on this one? Okay. If not, is there a motion?
I'd go ahead and make a motion to accept this and move this forward to the full committee.
Okay,
Second.
thank you, Mike. That was Hoyt second. Okay, but it's been moved and second that 037 revision 1 is
Who was
recommended for
the
full
motion
approval.
maker on that one?
Sorry,
Who was the motion maker?
That was me,
Mike,
Mike
and then
Barth.
Hoyt.
Gotcha.
This is
Okay,
this is Tim, just for a discussion. Can you scroll up again just to double check what we're removing? Okay. Thank you.
does everyone remember this? Okay. Okay, we're ready to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? With that, 037 is recommended for approval. Thank you. Oh, let's see. 10 is, then item 10 is 124, revision 1. Joe, your name's on this one. This is the condition space proposal.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the one that we have been talking about. Should we name the codes everywhere? And the option 3 is kind of what has been identified by the correlation group as kind of most attractive to them. And I believe that in our package, well, let me get online real quick to see our spreadsheet. This one's was voted on, I believe, to deny the petition by fire tag, and I just want to make sure I'm not misrepresenting that. Just give me 2 moments. This is 124. Maybe this one didn't specifically go back to the fire tag.
I think this one, Dustin, the way it is because our state completely rewrites the Washington State Energy Code. I mean, it's a completely standalone code. You do not have to go to the international. Option number 1 is what I thought we were just going to do, just so it's the clear and concise way of doing it, because we do not use the IECC at all in our state of Washington right now. So that's what I remember. I didn't think we were going to go through and put all the wax in there. The reason why I didn't think we should be doing that, from what I remember before, is because then are we going to do that for everything? Because the wax, people that are used to in our state of Washington said, no, we have a Washington State Energy Code. We have a method of how to apply it. And this just gives the direction in our state code that just says, hey, whoever you are around the country, go to the Washington State Energy Code. So I think option 1 is what we should do. So.
Okay. Just for clarity, the option number 3 already exists in all the code books. We put this in the preface section of the books, and it's the thinking that, you know, we know in Washington, just like Hoyt said, that we have a Washington State Energy Code. I believe the last section here, codes which are not adopted through this RCW shall not apply unless specifically adopted. And so that statement there is where where some of the other discussion felt that what we're already doing for noticing this is enough in the state of Washington without creating new amendments. But I do agree that it would be well placed in section 101.
Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I feel like we actually voted on either this or the exact same proposal. That was a different proposal that we said we were going to do the same for all of them. And in that discussion, we approved not modifying any of the existing references to international codes, and in place essentially understanding that, you know, the WAC that you show below tells us that anytime that's referenced, it's referring to the Washington State. I appreciate that our energy code is basically completely different. I would argue chapter 1 is very much the same, but aside from that, it's almost completely rewritten. But it just creates the question of at what level of modification do we change them, you know? And I feel like it's important to be consistent. If we were going to change this, we would have to change every reference to the International Mechanical Code to be the Washington State Mechanical Code. And so therefore, I think our previous action, which was leaving the international reference code and understanding that the preamble and the RCW govern.
And the other reason that we were maybe shying away from placing it in chapter 1 is because that is allowed to be amended without approval from SBCC by local jurisdictions. Not that they would adopt the International Energy Conservation Code in that section and then try to enforce that, but that was one of the points of contention.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, I hate relying on my memory, but I seem to remember that we were going to run this by Dirk too, to get some input as to whether do we need to do anything or not. So I don't know the results or if that ever happened.
I did have a conversation with Dirk on this one. And as far as naming the other codes, the Washington Building Code or Residential Code, it's not specifically written out. The only one that we have the specific name for is, like Hoyt pointed out, the Washington State Energy Code. And I'm not sure where exactly we talked about it, if it was within this group or the fire code tag, but it seemed to me that the movement forward was to include just like we already always have, which is doing option number 3. And I'm not finding in my spreadsheet anywhere that we've made an official motion on it. And it may be, I might have to go back and look at some other meeting information on that.
I mean, I'm fine either way, just to let you know. I mean, but you know, I use this all the time. So, I mean, it's not, I think everybody on this, in our group knows all the stuff about the wax. Whatever is easiest is fine with me.
Yeah. Thank you, Hoyt. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I don't think we need anything because I mean, we've always had that and we've always applied it. I think everybody applies it correctly, knowing that it is, and it is the only one that is changed by title. So in my opinion, I would definitely not change 1202.4.3.2 because that would open up that, you have to change that everywhere. However, option 1, putting it in 101.4.6 would make sense just as a clarification. Again, I don't think it's necessary, but because that is specifically calling out the energy code, it's a logical place to put it if we're going to put it in one single place and have it understood that way. And then with option 1, obviously option 3 remains because option 3 exists and will continue to exist. So I would think that we should either move forward option 1 or nothing.
I think that's where we are. Motion to either strike everything except option 1 or make a motion to deny this amendment, this petition, and do nothing, right? Or simply withdraw it, I guess, is the third option. Is that our recommendation, to just withdraw it?
And this is a tag kind of generated proposal. It's not something coming in on just a whim from outside of the tag.
Okay, go ahead, Micah.
I'll throw out there again, or at least I think I mentioned this before, but RCW 1927-015, the definitions talk about the state building code and the definitions for it, and it includes the state energy code referenced by 1927A. If anything, I agree with Mike and others, except option 1. If anything, more than likely, don't need it. Thanks.
Roger, thanks, Mike.
Well, I think to make Tim happy, I think we should go ahead and just deny it. Doesn't sound like it's needed, and we can go around and around would it maybe be better to have option 1 in there, but this hasn't changed. The RCW, I think, explains it pretty darn clear. So.
Okay. Is there consensus on that? Either deny or withdraw?
I suspect so.
Okay. Dustin, what's the easiest?
I mean, the easiest is to withdraw. I mean, either way, I mean, if we don't want to do a voice vote, we can just ask for Joe to withdraw the proposal.
Okay.
Or it's, if we're going to deny it, it's easy either way.
Okay. Joe, it's up to you.
Let's withdraw the proposal.
Thank you. Okay, assuming there's no objection to that. Okay, so that means that proposal or petition 124 is withdrawn. Okay, agenda item 11 is petition 063, the ground snow loads. 063 revision 1.
Just finishing up the note here, 1 second.
Yeah. Joshua, are you still here? Josh, you want to lead on this one?
Sorry, it helps when you hit unmute. Yes, absolutely. So we talked about this a bit recently, or 2 or so meetings ago, and I had done some revised language for and just based on all of our conversation. And Dustin, you should have that copy. I'm not sure if you're able to share that. If not, I'm happy to.
Have that, and I have your support doc as well.
Great, thank you. So we ended up agreeing on a method, but not exact numbers, and well, that's kind of the only thing necessary to discuss at this point. And I also want to look at the snowdrift provision I put on there. So let's see, you're pulling up.
This is this document you sent over.
Sure, yeah, and that was attached to the previous one as well. Okay. Can we look at the proposal itself? Thank you, sir. So oh, I'm sorry, can you scroll down? This is the current language. Perfect, that makes more sense. So we had discussed making a couple of proposed amendments. One would be in the list of information required to put on structural drawings that we have the green number 9 here, site elevation above sea level and mapped elevation from ASCE 7 hazards tool or equivalent geodatabase. I think we all agreed on that, but first time to look at final language. The next portion was adding an exception. So 1608.1 is essentially the general overreaching snow load design section, and it has an exception for temporary structures already. We would be proposing calling that number 1, adding number 2. This is our snow drift exception for Western Washington, where we have low snow loads, mimicking what we did with SCAW. One of the things that was mentioned last time was ensuring we have some good delineation for sites west of the Cascade Mountain Range. I went ahead and added where site elevation is less than 700 feet. We had talked about should that be 700, 500. Digging through the SCAW, they had a couple different provisions. One was where snow was 25 PSF for the roof or less, or some jurisdictions said under 700. I went ahead and threw both at it. Now I just said 25, and you all may be looking at the screen saying, hey, that says 35. That's because that would be the equivalent snow load, or actually I think it's a little more conservative than equivalent when we move over to the new risk targeted approach for ground snow loads. So what all of this is saying, this green chunk is just pulling forward what we already did from the SCAW, where we were neglecting snow drifts in areas that don't really experience snow drift. I think the elevation combined with west of the Cascade Mountain Range, make sure we're definitely far enough west and there's no debate on where the line of the range is, because certainly it's higher than 700 feet. I did also add in here that it doesn't require for 7.7 snow drift on low roofs and roof projections and parapets. However, sliding snow requirements shall not be waived. And I don't know if we discussed that as much, and I'm open to conversation on that. But sliding snow is something we experience out here and was never referenced by the snow drift section. I'm concerned by saying drifts altogether because people lump those together, even though it's expressly not a drift. Open to whether or not that's good code language, or if that's, I know sometimes we get cautious with maybe using a user note or something else, but that's one of the changes that was made. The final change, we had this language saying if the mapped elevation and the site elevation were different by a certain amount, then we would have to provide additional justification. And I had some initial numbers thrown out of 15% and 500 foot just as a placeholder value. And we never kind of came up with exact numbers, but I know there was some concern with it. I did make an Excel sheet where I was, well, maybe I'll finish saying this and then Dustin, if it's okay, I can share my screen with that. Last exception I put in there, elevation difference of less than 100 feet in any case shall not require additional justification unless determined necessary by the building official. I feel like most people would be comfortable with a 100-foot variation for snow elevation. That makes a lot of sense. However, I added this added chunk about unless deemed necessary by the building official, because there are unusual pockets in Washington state where 100-foot might make a difference that would be known to the local jurisdiction. And I wanted to make sure that that was clear that, hey, it's not saying in all cases 100 foot is a no, saying in general, within 100-foot difference, we're not concerned about it. But if your building official says, oh, you don't understand, we have this convergence zone right here. Like I know some areas out in Seebeck area of Washington gets a phenomenal amount of snow in a small area compared to other locations. They have that ability. So with some of that said, if I'm able to share the screen, Dustin, I want to show this. Perfect, you're ahead of me. All right, we all see my Excel sheet?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. So what I did is I essentially had a maximum difference. That was, we were saying if it exceeds 300 foot, meaning the site elevation was greater than 300 foot of the mapped elevation, the 10% percentage option and the exception for 100 foot, and just kind of looked at how all of these came out elevation wise. When I put in the original 500 and 15%, we were starting to get things where if you're almost 2,800 feet, 2,400 seemed appropriate. That felt like a stretch to me. I'm proposing this 310%. It keeps all elevations, of course, within 10%, and in very high elevations, it starts to become less generous, which I think makes sense. I'm making this section up entirely, so I'm very open to conversation, but we need something to bracket in a reasonable amount of values that we can say, hey, that's something that you need to talk to your building department about and get confirmed. So I think that's kind of my whole presentation on it. If anyone wants me to flutter numbers in this sheet, I'm happy to do it to see what it does. If we want to look at the language a little bit closer and make sure we have that ironed out, great. But I think we're generally in agreement on direction. It's just making sure we get the right language and approach.
Do you think you could zoom that sheet in just a little bit?
Oh, sure. Sorry, on my monitor, it doesn't look so small, but I see how it would be on your end. Is that a little bit better, Dustin?
Way better.
Okay, great. And I'll scroll down to the meat of it that doesn't have our 310% up there. And Roger, I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think including this in some of the justification, I think is important. And I'm supportive of where we've got things. I think this is a big change for structural engineers. I think that what we've got, the direction that we've headed in is the right direction. I would anticipate we will get a lot of conversations during the CR 102 public comment, and we should be prepared to address those, and I think we are. My only question is, and I don't know if Mike is on, but I think that the exception 2 that you added may not be grammatically correct, and I always hate starting to comment on English grammar where
It's
commas are
important.
kind of stuff, because I'm terrible at that. But and I'm also not sure that some of the wording in the 1608.2, the green that you added, I think snow load justification shall be submitted to the building official. I think you can get rid of to be approved. I think that that's probably covered elsewhere. Like if you're submitting something to them for approval, I think that's mentioned up above probably. So those are some general comments. I think we'll maybe wait to hear everybody else's take before we really start digging into the meat and bones of the language.
Perfect. Thank you, Roger, for pointing out a couple of those. So we'll definitely talk about that.
Sorry, I'm not recognizing people. Natalie.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, if you could go back to the proposal.
Sure, I could get that quickly, or if Dustin, you want to take the screen share back. I don't have it open right this moment.
I got it.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So exception 2, which I think is great to have a number for west of the Cascade Mountains, but so you took the 25 and divided it by 0.7, and that's how you got the 35, I'm assuming. But the question I have is that before, so in 21 code or ASC 716, we have an importance factor that we're losing. And so what are we going to allow this 35 regardless of the importance factor? Or the, you know what I mean, the risk category? Yes.
It is a good point. So to dig into that a little bit more, what we actually did is we took a ground snow load of 20 PSF, because I know the previous recommendation was for roof snow loads of 25 from the SEAW white paper. However, we're comparing ground snow loads now, and most of those 25s actually had a ground of only 20. So I wanted to keep that apples to apples. Julius had pointed out at one point that there's some commentary in the ASCE that we can't simply divide by 0.7 because it ranges between 1.4 to 1.6 to get to a risk targeted approach. So as a recommendation, multiply by 1.6. I know that's subtle, but it does raise it a little bit more. So basically what we've done is we took a 20 PSF ground snow load times 1.6 gets us 32 PSF. And I rounded up to 35. Maybe we should be rounding it down to 30. We could put in some language regarding risk factor, though I feel like what's going to happen is as risk factor goes up, you become more restricted. and you are needing to do snow loads, that's reasonable. If you think we should have more language around, you know, maybe making sure if we're doing a hospital building, we're not having to do snow drifts, we could talk about that, though I'm kind of the mind that if we are doing higher importance categories, that it seems appropriate to do snow drift, and I feel like I've seen that done in the industry before. I'm open to what the group thinks about that, but that's kind of my opinion of it and how we got to that number, but certainly open to more thoughts.
Okay, yeah, I don't have a specific solution. I haven't had enough time to think about it, but it's just the first thing that came to my mind. So thank you.
It's a good point. It might be worth thinking about that a little bit harder first.
Okay.
Julius?
Hi, Josh. Yeah, just to add to what Natalia said, I think I have the same thought. Maybe because in the essence of the white paper, they exclude higher risk category. So if you're going to put an exception, I think it might be better just to limit it to risk category 2 and below, because I believe for drip calculation for higher risk category structure, I think it makes sense to have a more refined analysis on those type of critical structure.
Sure. Real quick, I would point out, I don't think you could get under that number in a higher risk category because the snow load increases now. It's not an importance factor. So you're not going to have snow loads that low in a higher risk category that I'm aware of.
Right. And well, the difference between the snow load for different risk category in ASC 722 is significantly higher, as you may know. So
exactly. So that would trigger you to need drift calcs for a higher risk category.
That's why I feel like it for higher risk category, excluding drift calculation, it is, I don't know whether that makes sense. And then
sorry, go ahead. I'm interrupting.
Yeah, and under the exception, since you specify flat roof snow load, so it needs to be calculated, right? Because what's published is ground snow load. So I think it's easier to use an exception if you reference a ground snow load. You're saying you get the 35 PSF based on a 20 PSF ground snow load. Is that right?
I will have to double check that information because you're right, that does have a PF. And now that you're bringing that up, there is a good point to be considered that if we have steep sloped roofs with slippery surfaces, you can get lower snow loads.
Right. So so those are just general thoughts right now that I can think of, but the direction that you're heading, I think it's I don't have big problem with, but it's just that again, the issue that Natalie has raised, I have the same issue, like different risk category needs to be addressed. So I don't think it should be part of the exception for higher risk category. So
well, and maybe the simplest thing is just to say for 2 and below. Does it say that in the SEAW white paper?
It says, yeah, it generally says that that for higher risk category, consideration for drip should be considered, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not aware of that off the top of my head, but I believe you. And perhaps the better approach then would be, let's hear what some other comments, and I will try to come up with some numbers in the background to revise on the fly here. I appreciate your comment, Julius. Thank you. It's a good point. I will be trying to math while talking here. Point.
Yeah, one of the things I have, and I'm the same way. They're piece of F and piece of G and all that stuff. I think it really should be reference to a piece of G ground snow load, not a piece of F in that exception, the one that you had up there. But, you know, the white paper that was done, it was a long time ago that we did it. And there's other code changes that is done. And we're following all the other seismic changes were different a while ago too. And I'm kind of at the point where I don't see, granted, it's going to increase our designs in a lot of buildings that we haven't done in the past. But I'm like, I'm in the position, in the opinion that we should be following ASCE 7 and just kind of going with that and not putting in exceptions for certain areas. That's just my, and so I'm actually gonna vote to stay with the model code language. After all the research I've done on it, I don't think it makes, I think it increases the snow load, but unless I can see besides an emotional decision where it's not required, I have not been able to find a situation that says, well, our method that we had is correct, or this method at a certain height is correct. I have not found enough literature to convince me that we need to do something different here in the state. So
a couple quick thoughts on that, Hoyt. Are you saying you would want to nix all of it, including the, you would say you'd vote the whole proposal down, including the elevation differences? Because that can lead to significant, I mean, wildly unsafe under designs that I'm very worried about. I'm open to talking about the drift, but boy, I think we have an issue. And it's not
so
just
the
us.
elevation differences, I haven't gone through all of them. I saw the spreadsheet that came up.
Yeah,
that
so
I
we have
thought you
some
sent
that's
out.
reducing like 70% or 60%. That seems wild to me. And it tends to come down to, if you look at it, it's a difference in the mapped elevations that does it. I have some other documentation I can send out regarding that. We're not the only state saying this. They're running around defending
Okay.
this method to a whole herd of states. I mean, I don't know if we can say these are necessarily emotional decisions, but anyways, Roger.
Okay, that's fine. Then I'll go and finish, and then that's fine if it's based off more studies are there. The ASCE 7 is off. I'm also fine with exactly limiting a certain height elevation where you don't have to include that.
Okay, but let's not lose sight of the first part of what you said with the snow drift, and I think that's mostly what we're talking about right now. And I definitely want to kind of circle back to that, and your comments appreciated, Roger.
Yeah, I think the snowdrift is something we should be doing personally. So
My only comment against that is I've never seen a snowdrift in Western Washington, and I've lived here my whole life. Someone can show me a picture of a snowdrift, I'll be much more convinced.
Yeah, I wanted to reply to Hoyt too. I wanted, and Josh, you responded. I think that we need to do something besides just ASCE 7. It was developed in Colorado. I don't think it accurately reflects the elevation variation. I don't think that the accuracy, what is it, Josh, a half mile or something like that? And
Half mile, yeah.
we can have wildly different elevation changes. So I think that the direction we're heading is right on. I do think that the snowdrifts, I'm supportive of what we've got here. I think that we just need to, I do think that we need to be clear on the importance factor. And I'm kind of going back to, we've been through a lot. I thought that the ASCE 7 actually had different, does the ASCE 7 include the importance factor? And I don't remember at this point.
It's multiple maps like what they did to wind.
Yeah.
So there is no importance factor anymore. That's dead, but there is an importance category which has a higher snow load for higher categories now, as opposed to one snow load and a multiplier.
Yeah. So I do think that we need to include that somehow.
Yeah, no, that seems reasonable. And Roger, is your opinion similar to some of the others that risk category 3 and 4 should have snowdrift calculations?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that I disagree with that. As we get to more important structures,
Yes.
yeah, why not? Simple retail shell buildings, houses.
Yes, I would agree with the snowdrifts are required for importance factors 3 and 4.
Yeah, I'm coming around to that. That does make sense, and I appreciate everyone bringing that up.
Go ahead, Mike.
Thanks, everyone. I'm not gonna beat it up too much, but since Roger threw me out there for the technical language,
Please, I would love it.
let's look at exception 2 here on the screen, 1608.1 exception 2. It is kind of wordy and strange, and the last sentence of that is an exception within an exception, which I'm not sure if we can fix on the fly.
An exception and an exception. I'm trying to see.
Yeah, so item 2 says you don't have to do these things under ASCE these 3 individual titles, and then you have an exception to that is you can't waive the section 7.9. So you got an exception, and then that's an exception to that exception, if that makes any sense.
Oh, I
Is
see
really
what
you've
you're
got
saying.
there.
I see what
Yeah.
you're saying. And that particular line, I'm open to just taking out. I don't think that specifically is snowdrift. It was a clarification. And like I kind of said at the opening, I'm not sure if that language is appropriate there. So if folks more experienced in code language thinks that's not appropriate, I have no issue with that being removed.
If it's relevant to what you're doing, we may just need to find another way to word it. Is all. It's just if you're looking at technical code writing, that it would be an exception within an exception. And then if we go down to 1608.2, when you talk about snow load justification, usually I think that the common terms used in the code are substantiating data, not justification. So you're substantiating what you're identifying. And then on that same section, you're said defer at the end, deferred by more the maximum of the following. Is it one of the following or both of the following? That's not clear. And then when you look at the exception, if you scroll down just a little further, Dustin, on that one. Again, that one's almost an exception within an exception. You're going to have, really your exception is elevation differences of less than 100 feet.
I don't
That's-
understand how
that's your
that would be an
exception.
exception in an exception.
Then you have shall not unless additional justification is determined necessary by the code official. That's already an allowance. So again, you've got this exception that says you don't have to do this, but then your exception is unless the code official says so. Really the way it's
I will
worded,
take
the
your word
way
on
the-
that. I don't understand it, but I don't claim to know the language well enough to understand negative implications of that. As a user of the code, I think that certainly would not stop anything, but you guys are much more experienced in the code writing aspect, so I'll happily defer on those.
I think is what you're saying there, 1608.2 charging language is your site-specific case studies shall provide substantiating data. And your exception is, except where the elevation difference is of less than 100 feet. Doesn't need to go back for additional requirements on any of the cases. Again, you could just put a period after that on your exception. Elevation differences of less than 100 feet, period. That's your exception to the charging language of 1608.2.
The only thing I'll throw out there is and somebody can help me out with, well, I think it's section 104 of the IBC would cover this, where if you're in a situation where the building official is saying, hey, no, in our area, we do have a substantial change because of unusual climate considerations. I suppose section 104 would allow them to render that interpretation, and it would be within the intent of the code. Sometimes I get a little weird with that one, because is that rendering an interpretation or is that writing code on the spot? Which gets tricky, but I'm not hard on any of that. The meat's still there. If that's more appropriate to get rid of from, like I said, this is my first round of the tag. Let's can it.
It's probably not needed. I mean, you're already saying you're going to provide substantiating data to the code official in the green language in that section already. If they determine that's not enough to approve it,
Yeah,
they're going to ask you for
let's
more
go
anyway.
for it. I get what you're saying. Let's get rid of the edit.
Nuances, but you know, again, I'm not going to say differently on the technical aspects of what you're providing. But again, you know, are you in 1608.2? Are you requiring the maximum of the following? Is it both or one?
Again, to me, not thinking technical code language, when you say of the following, that's obviously including the following. But if we need to say both of the following, let's throw the word both in there and move on. It's the lawyer language stuff that I'm less familiar with, so I'm definitely on board putting it in there. It seems pretty obvious, but I know someday when somebody goes to argue it, then here we are. So yeah, I would agree with cutting off what's highlighted on the screen right now and saying both of the following, and it is intended to, I mean, I think obviously be both, but to make sure that there's good charging language, let's get both in there. Thank you, Micah. Is there other items? I'm not trying to dismiss it. If there's other things I'd like to hear.
No, it's fine. You know, the other justification language, you could put substantiating data. I mean, that's what you're providing to the code official. And that's
Is that a
consistent
defined
with
term?
other. It's not, but it is consistent with other sections of the code, including chapter 16.
So theoretically,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be italicized, but it would be.
Yeah. If you do a search of justification in the code, it comes up one time, but substantiating data comes up multiple times, including that in chapter 16.
Then by all means, I think that makes sense to replace the word justification with substantiating data. Well, substantiating data for snow load shall be submitted, I suppose. Is that appropriate then?
Sure. Again, you don't have to change anything. I'm just making recommendations.
Well, I'm open to them because, like I said, first round on the tag. So these are learning experiences, especially when it comes to writing the language. So those are appreciated things, and I want to make sure we don't create challenges in the future just due to my, naivety with this.
That is the correct code language. Just to let you know, Micah had it right. So
Perfect.
it's already in the very beginning. It's already approved by the building officials. So.
And does that think it should be substantiating data for ground snow load? Is that better, everyone?
Since the whole section's ground snow load, don't really think it's necessary, but I'll just jump into something that Micah said earlier, but the reason why I was raising my hand to begin with. First off, I think overall structurally, I think this looks great. I think everything's moving along as it probably should. But that last section 7.9 in exception 2 of 1608.1, I just think that that's best served just being removed. Anytime you do reference things in certain cases, it kind of draws attention to them when maybe you don't need to, right? So for me, it's drawing attention to something saying that these can't be waived. But why are we saying that to begin with when it never approved it to be waived? So,
well, I'll tell you where my thought came from. Let's delete it. It's canned, it's gone, it's done. I don't want it anymore. But the reason is I can tell you that most structural engineers lump those sections together, and there would be likely misinterpretations from that. But is it our job to write code language to make sure people follow the code correctly? Is it a job to write the code language such that it's enforceable? I think it's the latter, so I'm on board.
Thanks.
Okay, Julius.
Sorry, Josh. I was just reviewing this on the fly. On exception 2, just to stay in the essence of, again, the white paper, because you developed exception 2 based on the white paper, right? So I believe there should be a minimum roof snow load for a drip to be waived, right? Like in the past for white paper, you have a minimum 25 PSF design roof snow load. So if we convert it in this case for strength, they should design it for a 40 PSF roof snow load.
And Julius, thank you so much. You just helped me remember something really critical of this conversation. Thank you. That is where I came from. I misspoke earlier talking to Natalie. However, I didn't use the 1.6. I used the 1.4 from that range of the commentary you pointed out, because it would be more conservative to have a lower number. So roof snow load of 25 times 1.4 is exactly 35.
It should be 1.6, right?
1.6 would give us a bigger number, allowing more exceptions. And the code says it's between 1.4 and 1.6. So when you're trying to be conservative and get more load, you want to use 1.6. When conservative would be less load. In this case, when setting a limit, I believe but is more appropriate.
And I believe the reason why the white paper has it as a 25 PSF is to have that buffer, because you don't need to design for drips if you have some drips within your roof. That's why 25 PSF in the past is considered minimum, even though your calculated roof snow load is much less than that from previous cycles. So
you want this to be less restrictive?
What I'm saying is if you want to have a design consistent with what we have in current code or in previous cycle, the equivalent minimum roof snow load, if I design my structure using ASCE 722, but aligning with the white paper, it needs to be 40 PSF.
So you want it to be less restrictive than we currently have it, correct? Because you're making it less restrictive. I think that might be where there's a misconsideration. So we're saying where it's 35 or less, you want to make it where it's 40 or less, making more buildings fall under the exception.
Well, it's that's why in the 35 PSF, to me, it's different. You're providing a criteria on when you don't need a drip.
Correct. So it'd be more
Calculation.
conservative for that to be a lower number. Because if I said it was
Yes,
required on
yes.
everything,
If whatever criteria, like 20 PSF ground snow load, you don't need a grip, right? Provided it should be provided, the roof should be designed a minimum of 40 PSF. I think that's the again concept of the white paper. And then my other comment on 1608.2, the exception elevation difference of less than 100. I don't think it's needed because the ASCE already state that the numbers that they have is good for tolerance 100 feet elevation. So I don't know whether it's already covered in the ASCE.
so here's the deal. At this point in the time, I don't know if we're going to get anywhere. Can we? What's our best option here? I don't want to take up the whole day writing this proposal on the fly with everyone. Maybe we're just not ready for this, or we just take the drift out. But I guess I wish everyone had reached out much sooner. I'm not sure where we're taking this at this point, and I'm worried we might be rushing it along. So I'm open to conversation here, but I'm kind of running out of options. Roger?
Tom, I will leave it up to you, but I was actually going to propose some edits to this, given everybody's. So see if we couldn't get through edits of it.
But
right now?
Yeah, otherwise the
Okay.
options are to postpone it like we did whichever the other one, take it out of cycle.
Yeah, I think either is fine. It's the will of the tag, so.
I have a question.
Sure.
I can't remember, but Dustin, real quick, we weren't supposed to end at 4. We're going to 5, right?
Right. We're going to 5.
Okay, I was going to make an motion to extend it. That was all. So, never mind.
Okay.
I'm happy to try to make edits on the fly and see if we can get people comfortable. If that works.
Yeah, I guess go ahead and take it away, folks. I don't necessarily agree with what Julius is saying, but I would need a good hour of research. So 40 if we want to do 40, 35 if we want to do 45, 35, take out the
And I have a tendency to agree with you, leave it at 35 because it's an exception. So we're going to include more buildings will have drifts. But
yeah, this results in more drift load being designed for. Yes, that is correct. But Julius may have a point of putting in I would have to experiment with this. That's my issue of trying to do this on the fly. If we put in, like, say, a ground snow limit and a roof snow limit to ensure that we're designed for at least this much ground or at least this much roof snow, but we were not more than an amount of ground snow, then we would fall somewhere in between. I would have to sit down with that. I can't edit that on the fly.
Go ahead, Julius.
Well, I think that what Josh said is correct. Like, if you're gonna set an exception, again, the white paper has a recommended minimum roof design snow load in our current code of 25 PSF. So that equates to a 40 PSF minimum design roof snow load if we are using ASCE 722. So that's one criteria, and then we can have a criteria on when drip is not required. It can be 35 PSF as Josh put it there, or 30 PSF. But there's those I think are items that needs to be addressed. Yeah.
Could you have some language you would propose, Julius?
I don't have it on top of my head. Sorry.
Julius,
that's kind of where I'm stuck too.
Exception 2 is only saying you don't have to do drift. It's not saying that there's a minimum, whether there's a minimum roof snow load we're designing for or not.
And that could be a unconservative, Roger, because say you have a building in Seattle or Bellevue, and then you have a ground snow load of 35 PSF, and then the equivalent roof snow load will be around 29, 30 PSF. So, right, and then you don't require drift calculation, right?
But the exception is saying only for roof snow load. It is kind of silent on what the ground snow load is.
And that's what my other comment was. It should be the exception should have written it in a way that it should be ground snow load, because depending on the structure, you will have a different roof snow load. If it's a condition, it's not unconditioned, you will have different roof snow load value.
So what about this? Let's go this route. Let's take ground snow load of 20 PSF. I think everyone has considered as the minimum ground snow load from the previous codes, right? We all agree 20 PSF was the minimum ground snow previously. Are we all on the same page?
Sure.
So 20 PSF times 1.6 gets us the most conservative number for ground snow load, which gives us 32 pounds per square foot ground snow load. So if you have a 32 pound per square foot ground snow load and ensure your roof snow load is at least 40 PSF, which if you have a, so what you're proposing, Julius, is a ground snow, or I'm sorry, roof snow load of at least 40 PSF and a ground snow load of not more than 32 PSF. But a ground snow load of 32 PSF will almost never result in a roof snow load significantly higher than that.
And I think you're complicating it by having two.
Yeah,
Because we're just
I'm
trying
gonna
to
have to
say
disagree
this is
with
when
this.
you have a drift or not. Let's pick one. And right now it's roof snow load. We're silent on what the ground snow load is. We're just saying the roof snow load. And if we think that that should be 40, okay, to be more conservative, then let's make it 40.
Although 40 would make us less conservative.
All right. See, that's where I
See,
go
that's
back
the
to
problem is,
maybe-
Julius, I
maybe
understand
that's
what
it.
you're saying from a converting the document standpoint, but the regulatory effect of what you're proposing is fewer buildings will be designed for drift.
Right.
And I don't think ground snow load should have anything to do with it because it has to do with the geometry of the roof, the slippiness of the roof, the
Yeah.
exposure of the roof,
Yes.
the insulation of the roof. All of that factors into how drifts are going to behave. So I don't know that we would want to base the drifts entirely on ground snow load.
Yeah.
You know, and again, I'm trying to make fewer buildings designed without snow drift. If we go to
Right.
40, more buildings will be designed with snow drift. If we go to what you propose, every building will be designed without snow drift with extreme rare exception.
So may I have, Dustin, are you able to edit as I go through?
Yes.
So here's some proposed, and I guess do it in red or something. I'm hoping that I capture Micah's comments and I think hopefully everybody else's. So right after the 2.4, include risk category 1 and 2. So 4 risk category 1 and 2
So,
buildings.
so in the exception 2,
Yes.
Not to interrupt, but
Right
we're
at the-
still
right-
we're still seeing Josh's screen, not
Oh, I
You're
gotcha.
seeing my screen as I'm scrolling through the thing?
Ah.
Oh, I was seeing Dustin's.
I didn't know who I was seeing, so
How do I?
have a version
I
up
mean,
that
I'm
we
not
were-
sharing.
that we were
Yeah.
editing on the fly. So
I don't
updated
know. I
my-
just still have the you are viewing Josh Mergen's screen.
Are you seeing a Word document or are you seeing the
No,
ASC?
I'm seeing the spreadsheet.
I'm not. I'm seeing the Word document.
now I'm seeing a Word document.
Yeah, I was always seeing the Word document.
Dustin, can you-
my screen says I'm not sharing. I wish I
Dustin,
could
can
do
you put
something.
in after the word 4 on the second exception? So 4, insert risk category 1 and 2 buildings located in sites. Located in, and maybe make that red so people are clear of what we're modifying here since we're doing it on the fly. So we've added that in. Tell me if my English is proper. Shouldn't after the 35 PSF or less, should that be a semicolon? It's like we're everything up above and we've got commas in there. And then the second half of the sentence is the result. Snowdrift requirements and of section 7.7 and 7.8 are not required. So that's a grammar thing that I'm unclear on, whether it should be a comma or if that should be a semi-comma. I don't know.
I wish I knew too. I do math.
I agree getting rid of section 7.9. I think that looks like it's already been done. Would maybe prefer on this version, Dustin, that was there and X crossed out, but that's
Give me
fine.
one moment, I should be able to get it back in there.
Yeah, there you go. And then cross out the 7.9. I think most of us agree on that. Getting down to the 1608.2. The green sentence should start rather than snow load. It should be substantiating data for snow load. At the beginning of the sentence. I actually think that it should become before snow load, but that's fine. Substantiating data. And you've had for ground snow load, and that got added in there, but okay. I think that's fine. Substantiating data for ground snow load shall be submitted to the building official. I think we can get rid of to be approved. I think that's covered elsewhere. Yeah, I think you can get rid of that. And then I'm not sure about the exception. I think that I'm fine having the exception the way you've got it there.
Understandable. It's also why there's Health Market. At
Just-
healthmarkets.com, you can see the
I think we're hearing someone's commercials or
There.
something.
I think I got it covered.
So there was a change to the exception as far as what we've added. You got rid of some of that stuff, Dustin, but I think that's fine. So I believe what we've got there captures most of what everybody's talked about here. But I will turn it back over to other comments.
I agree with
thank
you,
you.
Edwards, Roger, but let's hear other folks.
Okay, thank you, Roger. Natalie.
Yeah, I would suggest even more cleaning up of the exception 2 by just saying snow drift requirements of ASC 7, and then just cross out section 7.7 and cross section 7.8 and all the rest there, because as you mentioned snow drift requirement of ASC 7, that I think that's enough.
My only thing I'll throw out there, and that's how I had it originally written, so I tend to agree, except that is 7.8, and I have the AC open, so I'm going to check here. It does not have the word drift in there at all. It's not under the drift section. It is called roof projections and parapets. They relate to drifting snow loads, but I was concerned that if you say drifts are not required, we have 7.7 drifts on lower roof, and there's nothing that, from I could see the code that lumps all these together as these are drift or not drift. It's a word we use more colloquially, kind of like the podium conversation earlier. Unless there's something I'm missing, because I prefer that code language what you're proposing, Natalie. I think that would be much cleaner, except roof projections and parapets are not drifts per se.
Well, the first sentence, I mean, I haven't read the whole thing, but the word drift is mentioned in 7.8 of ASC 722.
Sure, but and I'll look to other people here. Does that work if it mentions the word drift? I mean, we could say then every provision that mentions moment is a moment requirement, and would all apply. I'm open to this because I'm new to this language. I would say it says the method for windward drift shall be used to calculate drift loads on all sides of roof projections. Whatever folks more experienced in code language think, I'm on board with that, but I don't think the code defines snow drifts as a specific topic which we could exclude. I could be wrong.
Well, I don't know, it's my opinion. I think it's cleaner that way. I think people know what snow drift is, and they'll go to ASC 7 wherever there's snow drift requirements, whether it's in the title or not. I think they'll know. But that's my opinion. Maybe others have other opinions.
I don't disagree at all. I think that's how it would be interpreted. I'm just concerned that if drift is not a defined section or a defined anything, then what are we telling them they're required to do? I agree with, as an engineer, I get it. If I read that, I would get it and know where to go. But I keep mentioning I'm new to this language, so I will back up, and I'm perfectly happy however people want to handle that, because I think the intent is clear. as long as it's appropriate language from a code standpoint.
Okay, that's fine. You guys can decide in the end. Let's see. And I was hoping to understand a little bit more your table, like the 10% of the site elevation and the 300 feet. I'm understanding how you came up with these numbers, and maybe you already went through that.
Oh,
I missed a couple meetings where you talked about this provision, this proposal. So
we pulled them out of a hat after much conversation. ASCE would not give us numbers. They said use your judgment. So,
and you did some calculations in that Excel spreadsheet you shared earlier.
Would you like to see it again?
Personally, yeah, I didn't quite. I mean, it was the first time I laid eyes on it, so I'd like to understand how it works.
No, by all means. And thank you, Dustin, for being on top of that.
And I did suggest that get included in the substantiation.
Okay.
So I agree, people need to be able to look at it, but.
I mean, this isn't much more of a substantiation besides just saying, hey, this is what plus or minus 10% looks like. You know, I mean, it can certainly get included, but it's just math. It's not a substantiation based on some kind of data or some other thing. But without this, then the whole thing collapses and we have to submit justification to every single project we ever design. That doesn't quite make sense. I'm open to adjusting the numbers, but already I think we're becoming pretty restrictive. If you use that ASCE tool, I think you'd be surprised how often this is going to require additional justification, because I'm not sure if you've perused that tool, but it'll be off by 1,000 feet sometimes.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm definitely open to the group on these numbers, but the question is, where did they come from? It's our best approximation because we had a meeting with the people who did the paper for ASCE and asked them about this very topic. And they said, oh, where it's significantly different. And that's the language they use in the ASCE web tool as well. Where significantly different, you shall. So we're trying to define what significantly is, so that's not a debate. Where you draw that line is a hard one. So I originally threw out there 515%, looked at it a little bit more and went, wow, that's quite the spread of elevations. That doesn't seem right. And there was some pushback in the meeting with that as a placeholder. So today I'm proposing to the group 310%, with an exception of 100 feet based purely on logic, not on data.
Okay. Yeah, as long as this is in the commentary or something like that. Or I guess there's no commentary for the Washington State Code, so it'll be
so again, yeah. Well, what do you know? I'm open to other suggestions of how we could bracket that. This was one I was grappling with as well. But it's this or allow situations where we could be under designed by 70%.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not good. Okay, thank you.
And maybe real quick for the group. Oh, sorry, Tom, may I say one more thing?
Yeah.
Just real quick for the group, I want to point out the goal of this is not to lower snow loads. It's to ensure we don't accidentally lower snow loads significantly. So I want to make sure people don't think what we're trying to do is going, wow, these new ASC snow loads are so high, we want to avoid these. No, we're saying, oh my gosh, sometimes the tool reports grossly under designed snow loads, and we want to make sure roofs don't collapse. Anyways.
Makes sense.
Karsten.
In 1608.2, I think we should probably get rid of the stuff about Alaska and Hawaii. It obviously doesn't apply to us.
Sure. And folks, unfortunately, I'm running way past on my appointment here. I mentioned I had to leave at 4. I guess I'm not really sure what else I could do here unless we're getting close.
Yeah, the one thing, can I add something real quick?
Please.
I've had some larger buildings, some like Amazon buildings and things like that I've done for my consultant review, where they have large mechanical units up on these roofs. Okay. And the one thing you talk about, that's a roof projection. And the other thing you also have is we're getting more and more occupied roofs. Okay. And the only way you can get an occupied roof is you got to have a stairway to it. So, you know, the one thing where you're trying to eliminate roof projections for snowdrift and things like that, the 7.8 limiting it, I would tend to not want to eliminate the snowdrift on roof projections.
Let me ask you this, Hoyt, though. Does the drift actually get higher because a wall is higher? Because your justification is this may be much higher than other low roofs. I mean, if we're
Yeah,
comfortable with
the
it,
wall
we have
wall
a
goes
single-
up higher, and you got the drift from the wind and stuff blowing onto it. I've
So-
done stuff in Colorado and stuff. So yeah, the snow load around the perimeter. And so if your framing is going perpendicular or parallel, that
I
affects the
think you
design of
misunderstood.
those
Can I,
windows.
can I,
Oh,
I,
okay,
I
I'm-
understand what you're
I'm
saying,
sorry.
Wait, and I'm just trying to move in the interest of time, not trying to interrupt you, but I think you misunderstood. The snow is going to, yeah, calculation wise, it will change, but you're saying we have snow drifts that are going over the top of penthouses right now in the state of Washington in these areas, which we are not. So going taller will not increase the snow load because there's not enough snow blowing there. If we're allowing low roof and second story, I don't see a justification that a penthouse or HVAC unit would be taller. Open the conversation to the group, but that seems contradictory to what we're trying to do. Maybe we just take the whole drift thing out. You know, this seems to be the most contentious part. It's not in the ASCE. Maybe this doesn't need to be there. I think it makes sense because we're not seeing those things in this part of the state, but if we're not able to get to agreement on this part, the other portions are so important that I would be happy to just delete this part.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, I don't think that, I think that we should include it and
I
wait,
agree with you.
that there are lots of discussions about snowdrift and where and what's appropriate and what we should do. What I want to, again, as a practicing engineer on the west side, I haven't done a snowdrift calculation for a long time. Most of our buildings are not required currently to do snowdrift calculations, and I will also suggest to you that rarely, if ever, if we do them, do they control. So I think that I don't want us to all of a sudden start having to do the snowdrift calculations all the time when they really don't do anything to the design. We're just required to do calculations. So because typically there's the limit. So I think that we should leave it in. As far as the type of snowdrift, I think that's an ASCE 7 thing. Could the snowdrift calculations in general be more clear or more accurate? Probably, but I don't think that we should be trying to change how the snowdrift calculations are done with this. We're just saying ASCE 7 snowdrift is not required in these particular cases.
Well, folks, I think everyone's heard my thoughts. I have to leave. I
Yeah.
can't be here any longer. So best of luck to you
Josh,
guys. I hope for the best.
I'll take over and try to
Thank you,
see
sir.
where this goes,
Thank you,
answer
Josh.
any other questions that I can. But Todd, I'm not sure if there's my recommendation, and I can't offer a motion, but my recommendation is to move this along. We are going to get a lot of comments from engineers and from building officials. This is a change to the snowdrift. I appreciate and I agree with what Josh said. What we are trying to do here is accept ASCE 722 snow load calculations, but also make sure that we're capturing those cases where those would result in a significantly lower load than what we are currently using. And I think that this does that. So I'll go ahead. Patrick, go ahead.
I'm just gonna say I appreciate the discussion the TAG's having, but we've got like 35 minutes left and a handful of proposals and things to get through. And I have an appointment and I can't stay beyond 5. So I'd appreciate if the TAG can keep the ball moving here. Thank you.
Yep, and I don't think our intention is to go past 5 today, so that'll leave us with having to decide when we pick up on Monday, ideally Monday, but we'll talk about that. Go ahead, Tim.
I feel like there's been plenty of discussion and back and forth, and at this point, just to see where it goes, I'd be willing to make a motion to approve this as modified on the screen to the full council.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you.
And
That
I
was
second.
Tim and then Hoyt in the second. Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Okay, with that, it's been moved and seconded that petition 063, correct? This will be called revision 2 as shown on the screen, is recommended for approval by the council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Is there any opposed? Okay, with that, we're moving 063 is recommended for approval. Okay, that was a big one. Thank you all. So as we go into our next one here, which is bottle filling, so we are going to run out of time. I don't think we should move into extensions today. Let's leave at least 5 minutes at the end to all agree and shake hands on when we're going to come back and wrap up the last few and then move the package forward. But let's keep going. Agenda item 12 is 133. See how far we get.
All right, so on this one, this in 2023, there was a bill put forward. And I tried to bring this in earlier, but I had it drafted against 2021 code language. So the bill number is 1085, and it essentially, without reading the RCW as I have here, anywhere a drinking fountain is required under the International Building Code, it's calling for the provisions of a bottle filling station. And in my original one, like I said, I had it drafted for the 2021 code language. And I've gone through my edits here. I'm showing the existing amendments here in green for 2021. And then we get down to our 2024 code language, and suggested modifications are shown in red with the existing state amendment language shown in green. My tactic for identifying the locations for this amendment here is to find where anywhere in the building code where drinking fountains were mentioned. I did a couple months ago. Take care of that. Okay, so anyway, anywhere drinking fountains were mentioned in the building code, I went in and tried to identify places for bottle filling stations. So in 1110.7, just adding the words "and bottle filling stations" to this section. And you'll notice here where I crossed out drinking fountains because we're talking about more than just drinking fountains now. I struck that out and used the term fixtures. Similar modification to 1110.7.1, just expanded the words drinking fountains to include "and bottle filling stations." And 1107.2 or 1110.7.2, similar stuff going on here, where we're talking about both drinking fountains and bottle filling stations. I'm replacing with the term fixtures. For the exceptions, I just did the same thing, added "and bottle filling stations" where drinking fountains are mentioned. And I included the rest of 11, this section. This is a WAC language in here, so I just included that in here just so we can see the whole section. And I've got some no changes indicated for the directional signage section, and for the table 2902.1, no change. In 2902.5 for a drinking fountain, I changed the title of the section to "and bottle filling station locations." And I've essentially just added the words "bottle filling stations" everywhere after the term drinking fountain. I struck 2902.5.4, which is a Washington State amendment. That is what the W in parentheses in front of these code sections means, that we have amendments in those sections. This, with the addition of what we have going across all the rest of this proposal, I didn't see this particular section as being needed with the additional language. I struck 2902.5.4.1 because it's no longer just group E occupancies, it's all occupancies. And same thing for 2902.6, just added "and bottle filling stations" in there. So this one was drafted quite a while ago, made some revisions to make it for the 2024 language. And that is my quick and dirty intro to that. And Tim, you have a comment?
Yeah, in general, I think my comment is we should strike or not change anything in chapter 11. That's the accessibility section. There's already a provision that says when you install them, they need to be accessible. So that covers everything we need to be changed in chapter 11. With that said, if we decide we need to still do changes, if you scroll up a little further, where it gets into when 2 are required minimum number, Obviously, you did a search for drinking fountain and added and bottle filling stations, but in 1110.7.1, you would now be essentially requiring 2 bottle filling stations because one would be accessible and one would be for standing persons. So what is that distance? There isn't one. The only thing defined for standing persons is your spout height for drinking fountains. So again, in general, I think we can do away with any changes to chapter 11 and only make the changes to chapter 29. And I agree with all those changes you did in there. And so that would be my 2 cents.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Tim. Go
I
ahead,
want to add
Dwight.
on that. Yeah, I want to add on that too. I agree with Tim on that. We shouldn't be touching chapter 11. So.
Okay. So does the tag wish to modify this one to remove all the changes in chapter 11? I have no real issue with that.
I think that was probably 2 TAG members saying that.
Yep. Okay. Then
Is there
I
anyone
will
opposed, I guess, is the question, right?
Yep.
And as you're doing that, if you get a chance to go down to the bottom, did you accidentally strike the charging language and then right there? And then, because it says through 5.4.3, but then down below, we didn't strike. Is that what you meant, your intention?
Oh, I probably didn't adjust numbering in here. I just I did strike that one on purpose, but I think that in my reading on these ones that they are still required, but I didn't get them renumbered in this.
So is it better to keep the charging language and just simply go 4.1 to 4.2 and then change the numbering?
I would agree with that.
Anyone else disagree?
I would just point out that if we don't have the charging language, then we would be allowing substitution for all occupancies, where it appears like currently that substitution is only allowed for the group E occupancies. Am I right on that, or how am I reading this wrong?
So you're arguing also to include the charging
Yeah,
language
so-
and then just change the
Yeah.
numbering? Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Does that look
I
preferable,
think that's
Todd?
right.
Okay. And then getting back into 11, I'll just get through striking all this.
Well, we're not going to touch 11 at all then, right? You're saying?
Correct.
Is that what you meant, Tim? And Hoyt?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's easier, Dustin, but you could almost just delete all of it, right? From the
Yeah.
proposal.
Oh, you are
Yes.
correct, since we're not
Yeah.
making. Well, yeah, we can delete anything from.
Yeah, that's
to
all you have to
29.
do is just delete everything you have written in 11 for 11. So.
Everyone understanding that? Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I think that makes sense. Are we ready for a motion then?
Yeah, I make a motion to approve as amended by Dustin.
I'll second. This is Tim.
Okay, Hoyt then Tim. Any other discussion? It's been moved and seconded that petition 133, we'll call this revision 2 as shown on screen, has been recommended for approval by the full council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. With that, then 133 is recommended. We'll keep pushing. Agenda item 13 is petition 066 revision 1.
This one is for the guideway transit. The Sound Transit took back the comments from the tag and made some changes here as identified there, and it looks like these are the changes highlighted here. And I'm not sure if I've seen Sound Transit here on the meeting here today.
Yeah, I'm here today. It's Mark Murray.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Mark, would you like to kind of talk on this one?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think that there was a comment from John Sue about the means of egress section, and there was some confusion. The language here wasn't quite right. I went back and looked carefully at it again. And there's two sections. So 11.1 is referring to normal power. 11.2 is referring to emergency power. And the intent of these amendments is just a pointer to those correlating sections of the IBC. So it's really to clarify that we want to use the details in the IBC rather than going to the NFPA 101. So that was a good catch by John. And this is pretty clean now. And like I say, they're just pointers. So I think this is pretty straightforward and very concise.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Are there any questions for Mark? Everyone remembers this?
Oh, we got Ken with his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ken, go ahead.
Okay, I briefly just talked to Mark just a few minutes ago. During the tag process, during our significant changes, it states for chapter 49 that with regards to, that's the fire codes 49, which is the same fixed guideway transit and passenger rail system as the building codes chapter 31, that our recommendation was that we needed to modify the existing state amendment and review NFPA 130. So that was never done. And so there is no correlation that has happened between chapter 31 of the building code and chapter 49 of the fire code. So it needs to get done. And so there's still some work to be done. There's several 2023 NFPA 130 changes that I briefly looked down in different sections that the wording has changed, and we need to update our amendments on both sides to match that language. And there's some existing state amendments just they just don't correlate correctly. So I think this should have gone through the correlation committee. It should have been looked at the tag also. And that's just my 2 cents on it.
Okay, let's come back to that. Tim, do you have a related comment or a different one?
Different comment.
Okay.
So in regards to the separation provisions that are added here, I think you now hit on kind of where you were headed with this.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's clear. So
okay.
What you're dealing with now is you're saying we're going to separate those adjacent non-public areas by some sort of separation, and then later you're saying by at least 1 hour fire barrier. So if it complies as an incidental use, sometimes they're able to get out of doing any separation at all. And
right.
if it complies as a non-separated occupancy, they also can do no separation.
Correct.
So I don't get the and by at least 1 hour fire barrier for enclosed stations. I don't know why that provision's in there. And then for the other provisions, I just think you need to add something to the effect of when required or when utilizing occupancy separation per 508 or incidental uses per 509, something to that effect to kind of say, if you choose to design it this way versus non-separated, then you have to meet those separation requirements.
That was the intent of wording this, and yeah, perhaps it can be worded differently to clarify the charging language. But the idea was to point to the building code 508 and 509 and allow those provisions across the board, but to have a requirement that must be met and you can't get away from for enclosed stations. So an enclosed station is traditionally a tunnel station, and those stations are more hazardous, and having a separation that's rated in that application makes sense, regardless of the exceptions in the building code. So there's exceptions in 508 and 509 based upon occupancy separations and whether it's separated or non-separated would be allowed for an open station, but but you couldn't go that far for an enclosed station. You would still need to separate it by 1 hour. So that's the distinction I'm trying to make here.
Excuse me, you guys, this is Steve here. I hate to interrupt, I apologize, but I did need to leave. And I did have comments on some of the other items that are still upcoming. I don't know if I have even written comments. I don't know if there's any way to manage that or can I vote in absentia? I don't know.
Primarily on the EV charging?
Yes.
Okay. With about 15 to 20 minutes left, it's likely we won't get to the big group and we'll have to push the cluster. I think it's possible to get to the existing building, EV charging, so.
That'd be great. I'm sorry, but I do have to leave now, guys, so I hope you still have a quorum.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. Take care.
Okay, sorry, let's get back. Go ahead.
So working through this in my head, and this is always a problem when you're modifying things on the fly. So hopefully other people are following what I say. And Dustin, maybe you can put it on the screen, but separated from adjacent non-public areas when required by International Building Code Section 508 and 509. And so everything else stays the same, but after non-public areas, put when required.
Hold on.
And delete.
Is it in the 5245 section here?
It's in that section and it's in the section above.
Okay, so
it'd be the same for both for the change.
Right. So bear with me and
I think that would make it worse.
Okay.
I think the current language at least does say what he's trying to say by making it in accordance with the code, or at least by 1 hour, if that's what they're trying to do. I think if you start adding that other language, that kind of messes that sentence up.
The correction I was trying to fix is, say it was a non-separated building and there's no separation required. I could read this pretty easily to say that I still need to enforce 508 occupancy separation provisions, even though it was a non-separated structure. So that was what I was trying to correct. So I'm more than happy to.
Yeah, and that's where I think that's where the statement as it is now actually better supports that. Because it's in accordance with 508 and 509. If non-separated is in accordance with those, then non-separated is valid.
That was my intent, that 508 has 3 options, right? It's got separated, non-separated, and accessory, right? So any one of those that can be used based upon the building type and size would be allowed. But there would be a condition that if it's an enclosed station, you need to at least provide a 1 hour fire barrier regardless of those exceptions. So that's the benchmark minimum for a tunnel station.
Yeah, I think the language as shown there does that.
I appreciate the
question.
Where it goes, then I agree that at least the first section does cover that. What about section 509? Would that allow you to reduce it in accordance with 509? In accordance with section 509.
Right. So in 509, they have that 10%. That's exactly what I was getting to, Tim, too. That's where I was going.
Yeah, but what the applicant added there by putting the "and by at least 1 hour fire barrier for enclosed stations" covers that. So it's saying that you comply with 508 and 509 and have at least 1 hour separation.
Right, but what if it's 2 hours? Because some of them, they're 2 hours and sprinkled and stuff like that. Incinerating rooms. I don't know.
Well, if 508 and 509 require 2 hour, then that would drive that.
Okay.
Because that would exceed the at least 1 hour.
Right. That's how I would read it as well. And we would have some, like a transformer vault would have, a much higher rating as an example. Electrical room would have 2 hours as an example.
Micah?
Thanks. I appreciate everything on this one. I do see where Tim is coming from on those two sections in the language. Maybe it just needs to be revised to say something and where enclosed stations occur or something like that. Because it's specific to that. I see what you're saying, but the way I read it with Tim is yes, it's saying that you can do it by this way, and when it's enclosed, you have to provide a 1 hour, or when it's enclosed, you have to provide a 1 hour minimum, regardless of what 508 and 509 tell you.
So just to clarify, this might be something that's confusing because it's a term that's not commonly used. Enclosed stations is actually a defined term in NFPA 130, and it really speaks to a station that doesn't have natural ventilation, and a tunnel station is a very good example of that, where the products of combustion will naturally ventilate without some sort of mechanical ventilation. And as a result, there just is a higher hazard there, right? So it's a defined term, rather than, the literal definition or the implications of the words.
Go ahead, Tim.
To that point, if we're going to do it in accordance with the building code, why do we need to put in accordance with the building code? So the only thing that sounds like it's different is for the enclosed stations. So it sounds like in reality, it's just the standard code that governs. However, for enclosed stations, there should be at least a 1 hour fire barrier for enclosed stations. Does that make sense? Because that's, I think, what was confusing me is why are we putting this in there? If it's already code that you're doing non-separated uses or you're doing separated uses, it's just confusing, at least me, on why we're putting this in this specific section.
It is a very confusing topic. So the challenge here is that this entire standard's adopted by the building code, right? But it's an NFPA standard, and it has building code type provisions embedded in it. And these issues are already addressed in the building code. So when you read this, the designers and plans examiners are thinking, okay, we've got all the building code requirements, but then we've got these requirements on top of it. Now, how do you correlate the two? And the intent of this was to clarify how a plans examiner will correlate the unamended provisions in this standard with the provisions of Chapter 5 of the building code. And it's really to say, just go back to the building code and apply that, and don't pay attention to this language, go back to the building code. That was a general intent of it.
Micah?
Thanks, Mark. I'm processing that. I think with Tim, I agree that's where you're going. I don't think the language is clear in that for a code official enforcement standpoint. Because Tim is correct.
That's the goal, and
Okay,
I mean,
sure.
Another approach to clarify this would be to strike these two sections and just rely on the IBC to drive the separations, right? And then you haven't got this language that in theory could be interpreted to go beyond. Like if you don't have this language for like an open station, right, where you really don't have a lot of risk, you need to have fire separation between public and non-public, and that regardless, even if they're sprinklers, which is really unnecessary in my opinion. So we're trying to bring it back to what are the norms for a commercial building for fire separations. That was what we're trying to do here.
So what you're indicating is in Chapter 508 and 509 is that open stations are not required to have any separation. However, when you have an enclosed station, it has to meet the requirements, but the minimum, no matter what, shall be 1 hour.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. And maybe that's the language we need to modify to where it gets you there. Because I think what Tim has said, and Tim, you correct me if I'm wrong, I shouldn't put words in your mouth. You're stating that you don't need to say that the stations need to be separated per 508, 509. That's already a given in the building code. What you're saying is enclosed stations shall have a minimum separation of 1 hour.
Right.
That's where
So
I was.
I'll jump in here, but Hoyt and Michael, is this something that since we're gonna run out of time, this could be improved and we pick back up? And then also, Ken, I don't know if we've addressed your concerns yet of correlation. But Hoyt and Michael, go ahead. Just we're 10 minutes left and we could extend, but I don't know if we need to, if we're gonna have to carry over anyway. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is just real quick. The way you're doing it, the way to make it simpler and stuff is do it by bullet points. When you start having run-on sentences with a bunch of ands and all these things, to get it clearer, when you have going to different places, you do it as a bullet point. I was just giving you that recommendation. I do think it needs to be modified because it is, I don't know if I could approve it as it's written right now.
Okay, Mike.
I think it could be, just to follow up on what Tim said, I agree. If it were just, taking that first one, all public areas or enclosed stations shall be separated from adjacent non-public areas by at least 1 hour fire barrier. And it makes it one simple sentence. You don't need the reference to 508 or 509 in either one of them. Because all you're changing is you're saying the enclosed stations must have at least 1 hour fire barrier.
That's true. It addresses it on that front, but we're also trying to point back to the building code to allow for some of the separations to be non-rated in open stations, right? And that's where that reference back allows you to use the traditional analysis to potentially have non-separated occupancies.
Ken?
Okay, so this was not Mark's responsibility. It was the building code tag's responsibility and the fire code tag to review the changes between the 2020 and 2023 editions of NFPA 130. Neither tag did that. Our existing amendments are wrong. 5.2.4.3 is wrong, just for an example, and 5.3.7.3 is wrong. It's been changed between the 23 and the 20 edition. We need to go back and fix it. It's not Mark's responsibility to fix it. It was the tags, and we all dropped the ball on this and didn't go through and make the changes. So I think it still needs work.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Okay, so what do we want to do next here? Do we think this needs some work and we'll bring it back on our next meeting on Monday or Tuesday?
Todd, I'm open to whatever makes sense. I don't know how much time we have with all the other amendments that need to be reviewed. We are, these issues are relatively minor, and we are working through this stuff with the building officials we're working on for future design. And there doesn't seem to be too much confusion right now. What happens sometimes when we get into a smaller jurisdiction where a lot of this stuff is new, and it does create some confusion. So we're trying to really head it off. I don't think it's a big deal if we wanted to take more time and come back and work on this and more comprehensively at the next opportunity in 3 years. I think that's okay. If that.
Well, Mark, I meant Monday.
Okay, so yeah, if we have time on Monday, that's fine. I just don't know that I have time to actually try to correlate everything in the time we have.
And Todd, I'm not sure that we're going to have time if Ken's correct that there needs to be correlation between fire and building. That's not going to happen by Monday.
I agree. Is that the next step? I don't know if I fully understand how much needs to be correlated, but I'll leave it to those that are.
I think what Ken's pointing out is a good point, that we've got to go through the entire changes that we have in the building code for this NFPA 130, because it updated. So none of our code references are correct.
Okay.
So that is a much bigger job, and maybe this is another one that's best deferred outside of this process, like the other two that we've done so far.
Yeah, Dustin.
So I remember lots of discussion on NFPA 130 within the fire tag, and I would have, before Ken said we didn't do it, I would have bet money that we had a proposal, but I was trying to review in there. I don't see a proposal for it, but in our significant changes existing amendments report, the tag member who was assigned to that one did do a pretty good job of reviewing the changes in the different NFPA 130 documents. And I'm hoping that we could use what he had there and bring something forward pretty quick, but you know, I'm just not sure. I know that we had a lot of discussion on it and there was some sections identified that needed to be touched on. I'm surprised we don't have a proposal for it. And so I just wanted to comment there there is some work that was done preliminarily on that correlation or with the new code, with the new version. So I'm not sure
Okay.
what with it.
Well, it sounds like this does fall in a category of probably tabling, getting more information so we can report back both tomorrow and Monday, come up with a plan. Nothing will die. That we believe there's a pathway to move this forward and enter into correlation and so forth. So is everyone kind of in agreement with that?
I would make the motion to table it until we could coordinate it with the fire tag and figure out our path forward.
Thank you, Lance. Is there a second?
Second, this is Tim.
Okay, that's Tim. Any other discussion? All in favor of tabling, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you for that. Good catches by everyone. Good discussion. All right, that leaves us with needing to schedule a meeting because we have the 4 EV charging proposals that we would all do together, and then roll everything into a package and do any other cleanup we have. Dustin, you said Monday. Could that work for everyone? I thought we could get there today, but one last push on Monday.
Monday works for me, but Tuesday, so we have 2 lengthy meetings tomorrow, the MVPE committee and the BFRW committee meeting to discuss the fire code package. Tuesday might be a little bit better for getting this posted and noticed a little bit better. And then that would give us a little bit, we'd still be able to meet the noticing requirements for the Friday BFRW next week. And so I don't know, I'm open for either, but if we go on Tuesday, I prefer in the morning if people are available.
I'm booked personally all day with interviews on Monday. I don't get done till 4:30 or so.
So maybe Tuesday? Okay. Anyone?
I do have some room on Tuesday.
Okay. Well, let's try that then, unless there's any obvious opposition here.
Do we think
I think it'll be
hours would work?
Yeah, I hope so, right? I hope we can. We've discussed the EVs quite a bit, so hopefully we give it one last deliberation and one question I have on that, just real quick. 135. Were we gonna discuss with Derek? I can't remember if we did that. We did, didn't we?
Yeah,
Dustin?
we talked about it, and his recommendation was just that we only have a real name for the. That's the one we're talking about, the name in the different codes, correct?
No, it was the EV chargers and
Oh,
conflicting with RCW.
yeah.
We don't have to discuss it now. I just want to make sure that I didn't see that in the proposal online, so we should probably give some guidance to everyone, a heads up before we enter in.
Yeah, so just real quick, Dirk's interpretation and reading of the RCW for 135 and removal of the exceptions there is that the RCW language requires them to be there, and so that we'd have to make a modification to that proposal.
Okay.
Was there?
We'll call that the Micah question. All right. There's your answer, Micah. Okay. Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Big day. All right. Appreciate
Thanks,
it. We're
everyone.
adjourned.
Have a good
Thanks,
rest of the
everybody.
evening.
Thanks, everybody.